I met a gypsy.
AJ Catanzaro, we have made it happen.
We have made, I think. Do not jinx it. Don't jinx it. Because we could have a great conversation and then my video might not even work. Who knows?
Nah, we're good. Man, I'm excited to have you on the podcast. I've been wanting to have you on for quite a while, and then the whole Mathis thing, we connected through that a little bit more, and yeah, I've been excited to get you on, dude. First of all, I'm a big fan of your YouTube channel. In terms purely of the content, and then secondly, I'm a massive fan of the headspace that you must occupy to do the YouTube channel, the way that you do it. So there's like, on a bunch of levels, I am a big fan.
Thank you. Not to praise you too much here, but I'm a big fan as well, man. Really, I think you do an amazing job.
No,
you
yeah,
have the voice for it.
You
really know what you're talking about. You're like, for some reason, your voice is nice to listen to. It might just be because you're Australian. I'm not sure, but
yeah, that's probably it. No, well, yeah, it's
man.
No, yeah, it's cool. So, and before we get too deep into it, I really appreciate the effort that you've gone in to the setup. It's not easy to pull this off the way that we've done it. So this is going to be a great
especially when you're working with
podcast.
Somebody that has no idea what they're doing.
Nah.
So if this all works, and if you guys are watching this, and we're not talking over each other, and like it comes out good, it was a miracle.
No, we're solid. So let's just dive straight into how fucking hard is it to make a 450 main event in 2021?
It's I tell everybody I don't want it to be my narrative, because it is so hard, and I'm just doing it differently. I mean, racing isn't my main focus, although it's a big part of my life right at this moment in time, because it's taking a lot of my time as I'm going to the races every weekend. But the other 40 weeks of the year, I'm not riding at all. So for anybody, if you're training 365 days a year and this is what you eat, sleep, and breathe, it is still nearly impossible to make a 450 main event. And then when you ride as much or as little as I do, it's dang near impossible. I mean, the chances are so slim, and those guys are riding so good. So the way I put it is, you're 1 to 20, or we'll say you're 1 to 15, you're 1 to 12 has always been, and always will be, ridiculously fast. What's really changed these last couple of years, in my opinion, is your 18 to 35. And I'm talking positions here. Like 35th place is flying. And I don't think that was the case, man, even 4 or 5 years ago. I don't think that was the case. The field wasn't as deep from that 20th to 40th position in the 450 class. You have your Cade Claysons, you have your Alex Rays. I could name 15 guys that all fall right into that category. It's very easy to get discouraged. I was talking to some guys after the race last night, and it's just like, you need to be in a certain headspace to just manage expectations and to be realistic. And of course, you don't want to set goals too low, right? But when you go out there every single weekend, and if your goal was to make the main event, and we're I think 12 rounds deep, 13 rounds deep, and that was my one main goal and my main focus, I'd be pretty depressed at this point. So the goals are small. The goals are a little more creative. The goals are a little bit more, I don't know what the word I'm looking for is. It's like, I go out for a session and my goal is to keep my feet on the pegs. My goal is to be aggressive. My goal is to like block past one person, just to try to get that aggression. Like, it's weird little goals like that first of all distracts my mind. And then secondly, and I think this is important, they're easily obtainable. So you kind of have that rewarding feeling. Whereas if my goal was main event, main event, main event. I'm chasing it for a year. I'm chasing it for 2 years. That's going to get discouraging really quick.
Yeah, so I think what you said about the narrative, I think that even for me, like as a person that is commentating on the sport in a sense these days, I think we have to shift the narrative collectively as a sport away from just the podium, because I think whoever was on the box is who got talked about, and whoever wasn't on the box kind of failed, if that makes sense. I think that's been the narrative for a really long time. And you're right, man. Like, there's guys, like, I watch your videos and I look at the way you ride a bike and I'm like, God damn, he looks so good. Like, it's so, the level that you're riding at, I mean, you know, let's go back like 5-6 years. You might be in like the top 15, you know what I mean? But nowadays it's just the game has changed. And I think about guys like right now, Dylan Ferrandis, Malcolm Stewart, Dean Wilson, these guys that they're not even, like Ferrandis has been on the podium, but they're not even podium guys, and they're some of the best in the world. And I think that we're sort of heading into territory where we need to start, like, obviously the podium is always going to be the podium, but I think the expectations are changed for everybody, that, you know, we almost need to celebrate like this best of the rest, like the mid-pack, kind of the way that the Formula One does, and then really kind of appreciate just how difficult it is for guys like yourself, A-Ray, Clayson, those dudes that are battling, Bowers. You know, you go back a couple years ago, man, Bowers was winning lights class races and battling with Coop for a championship. Now Coop is leading this championship and he's in the LCQ. So I think there's just this weird shift that's going on in the sport, to where we really can't live and die by race results in the way that I think that we kind of have in the past, and the way that I think comes like naturally to people, if that makes sense.
And I think that perspective is shifting a little bit. I think the LCQ used to be looked at as like you would feel shame to go to the LCQ. I don't think it's as much like that anymore. I mean, I think the battles that are taking place and the racing that's taking place in the LCQ is taken a lot more seriously now.
Yeah.
Right? Because look at the names of the guys that are battling for those spots. They're fast freaking dudes. They are fast. I got 13th in the LCQ this weekend. I rode really well. I thought I rode great. I didn't make any mistakes, really. I got caught up in some stuff in the first couple laps, which is really the make or break, right? But even if you look at lap times, they were a second and a half faster than me. And I rode well. I was jumping pretty much everything. I was skimming the whoops, I think probably as fast as those guys were. It's just, yeah, I think that's going to change. And the 450 class will change before the 250. And then the 250 LCQ will eventually, hopefully, if the sport continues on this trend, will get to that point as well. You look at the 450 LCQ gate, if you watch one in person, every dude is going really, really fast.
Yeah.
I mean, you have like, I could just keep naming names. You have guys like Henry Miller, that are getting, like Nick Schmidt is really good. Scott Champion, super good. I mean, you could go down that whole list. All of those guys are dang good. I qualified 37th in time qualifying 2 weekends ago. And I thought I had a good qualifying lap, you know, and then I qualified 26th or whatever it was this weekend. And I felt the same. That's a 10 position jump. I almost didn't make the night show.
Yeah. So what in your mind, like, obviously, I actually didn't know that you didn't ride for that much of the year. I'd say we'll get into that at some point as well. But from the AJ that rocks up at a Supercross race right now, who rides fucking good, what is the difference between you and Cooper Webb that you can see tangibly on the racetrack on the weekend?
That difference is a little bit more major. There's a lot of things that go into the Cooper Webb. So we'll start with this. The difference between me and Kyle Chisholm, somebody that makes the main event consistently, Kyle Chisholm is as solid as they get. And he's a 16th, 18th place main event guy every weekend. the difference between me and a chiz is, but if on the bike fitness for me is a huge, I'm lacking that huge right now, but that's something that is easily obtainable for somebody that rides consistently. And with that comes that extra bit of intensity. So landing a rhythm into a corner in just that 1 second of throttle, where I'm just using that as my rest zone and coasting for a second. It's charging that extra 6 inches into a corner, just that little bit where I'm using those zones right now to chill out, to take that deep breath, to flow around the corner and rest for a second and be like, all right, here comes the rhythm. Let's prep for this rhythm. Okay, here we go. And into the rhythm we go, where those guys are attacking every inch of the track. It's minor. The difference between me and a Cooper Webb, there's a lot of pieces to that puzzle. First of all, unfortunately, so I'm 27 years old. I feel like my skill on a bike is good, is up there with some of the better guys, but I'm years behind. Thank you. I'm years behind because I trained hard in 2012, 2013, 2014. 2015 is when the academy started. So 2015 to current, so the last 6 years have been dedicated to building my business. These 6 years, I've probably ridden, this isn't an exaggeration, races excluded, I've probably ridden 15 days a year. So do the math on that. These guys are riding 4 days a week, 52 weeks a year, no matter what. I'll never catch up. I'm 6 years behind of whatever that math is, however many days I missed per year, times that by 6. I'm screwed. But I can close that gap in a year to get to where Chiz is, maybe in 2 years to get to where Chiz is. Where if I start doing 4 days a week, which my wife is going to be working remote, my business is at a place where I'm financially independent, where I can not make money for 6 months, go train, and put some time in. And I'm hoping that will get me to that level next year. Because it's minor stuff, man. But when you're doing it how I'm doing right now, and I got a good start in the heat this weekend, I was riding in 10th or 11th the first couple laps. By lap 3, I was so tired I could barely even get around that track. And that's 3 laps into a heat race. And I'm not embarrassed to say that because it's a super physical sport. And I know kind of my situation. But dude, by the time Alex Ray passed me for 11th, I couldn't feel my arms. I couldn't breathe. And I might as well just pulled off at that point.
That is hectic, dude.
And it's really scary to ride. I hate talking about this because, first of all, it always sounds like an exaggeration. And I don't want to make excuses. But to not ride ever, to practice 14 days a year, and to have that be only on a supercross track is really terrifying. It's not like I'm just going out and riding an outdoor track and kind of build myself back into it. It's like, all right, here we go. Haven't ridden in 6 months. Let's gear up and just go hit these supercross whoops. All right, cool.
Yeah. I could see that being a pretty heavy experience.
Yeah, it's different. It's almost like I'm still running off of muscle memory from 2015, and that's kind of carried me through till now. Yeah. But I can't get away with it much longer.
Yeah.
And so the competition is getting faster and I'm getting older.
Yeah. And so did you just made the choice to put the effort early into the academy and the YouTube channel? Because I mean, here is the thing with all of this is, like, even if you were qualifying for mains, like, you get to the point where you're a cheers and you sort of put life on hold for a bit and you get in and make mains, like, really, what does that mean? Like, there's probably a level of personal satisfaction in that, and I'm sure, and I think that's all you need. And to backtrack a little bit, when you said you don't want to make excuses, I think that just by you laying out your expectations, I don't think that you're expecting to make mains and then you're saying like, oh, I'm super tired and it's an excuse. I don't think it's an excuse at that point if your expectations, like, you kind of know where you're at. But yeah, it's like, let's say you take that 6 months off and you train and you get to where you're a main event guy every single weekend. What's the fucking big, you know what I mean? What's the difference? Like you're there or you're not. Like, I mean, yeah, personal fulfillment, that is a worthwhile achievement. I mean, I train super fucking hard at jiu-jitsu for literally no reason. But there's a personal satisfaction in that. There's a personal fitness level. There's like the mental stuff that I've got to overcome every day just to show up and do the training. So I think that, you know, you can't discount the worth of just personal satisfaction that you can get from something. But it's like, yeah, I mean, does it even get that much better for you just by making mains?
It would take all of that dedication to just barely be making mains and to be a 20th place guy, to be a 19th place guy, right? And you're exactly right. That would be just kind of a personal goal, really. Yeah. And I mean, man, it's tough because I consciously made that decision tail end of 2014 going into 15. I had a lot of people in my ear that were outside of the industry saying, well, what are you going to do after riding, this and that? And it just kind of got my gears turning. I always did really well in school. I was always pretty articulate. I was training riders when I was 13, 14 years old. I was already had that dialogue going. I was kind of like starting to train people and tailor my training style and learn how to articulate it and make sense of it. And I was just like, you know what, we're going to do this thing because you're not going to make much money racing Supercross. You're going to make even less money racing outdoors. I got to be creative with it and try to brand myself. And the last 5 years, especially the last, I'd say 12 months, I've really gained some serious momentum with it. Yeah. And now it's at the point where I'm 27 years old. I feel like I'm just getting into my physical prime. Yeah. Knock on wood, I've been pretty injury free throughout my career. There's no reason I can't do 3, 4, 5, 6 more years of racing because I love it. Yeah. And if the business is self-sustaining enough to be able to do its thing, and I could put my time into training and be a consistent main event guy and do the YouTube thing the way I'm doing it, which is only going to hopefully continue that upward trend, and run the academy the way I'm doing it and having these guest instructors and teaching classes 3-4 days a week. Yeah. That's going to be a deadly combination. There's nobody doing it. No. I don't want to toot my own horn. I really don't. But there's nobody doing it kind of the way I do it now. There's no one really doing it the way I do it now, but I want to take it to the next level. I want to be like really competitive racing, and my goal is to be the best trainer in the world. I really want to be the best motocross trainer in the world. But I want to be a freaking competitive racer at the same time. I don't know if that's possible, but I'm going to try.
Yeah, and I mean, fuck, dude. Like, I guess that's kind of a part of what the personal freedom of doing well at your own business, and you know, you get like a good YouTube check every month, and you got some good sponsors, and you're making money. Like, that's what you should be doing. Like, you should be trying to tick all these boxes, and then if the racing thing is like, again, part of that personal satisfaction, it's just like, fucking hook in, dude. Like, it's not many people get the opportunity, and man, like, to work for the last 5 years to build that base. And I think that what you're experiencing is just like the internet. There's like a long tail of consistency where you put in like overtime and overtime. I mean, I'm experiencing that now with Gypsy Tales. It's like people, I feel like I'm this overnight success to people. And it's like,
well, you know what it's like? It's like investing money. Yeah. It doesn't seem like much is happening for a long period of time, but then all of a sudden it compounds and you're like, okay, now the only regret you'll have, and I'll give this advice to anybody out there, is that you didn't start sooner. My only regret is that I didn't start this YouTube thing and all this stuff sooner. Yeah. Because it gets to a point where it compounds and all of a sudden, like you said, everybody knows who Gypsy Tales is. Everybody watches, it seems, these vlogs where I'm teaching people how to ride. That didn't happen overnight. I've been trying to post these things for a long time now, and I just stuck with it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, so what was your like early or first belief or first influence, or what got the ball rolling for you? Because, dude, I remember that your YouTube shit fucking ages ago. Like, you were on the YouTube shit way before I even kind of had my head in that game, and I feel like I'm a pretty early adopter to it. Same with Jeff Walker, man. Like, you guys really saw something a long time ago. So what was your early influence, and what did you think it would be at the start?
That's a good question. I'm trying to think. It wasn't anybody motocross related.
It's because there was no one doing it.
Right, there was nobody doing it. And mine were terrible at the beginning, terrible. But I did have a vision of what it could be, and I always thought, like, man, my life is so cool all the time. Like, imagine if there was a camera following me around, and I had a reality show about myself just all the time. I'm always doing what people think is really cool stuff. And now I have a full-time camera guy. Like, it's turning into that. It's crazy. I'm trying to think. Oh, shoot, man. I know there's people. Who do I watch on YouTube? Drawing a blank. Who was yours? Do you have somebody in mind?
Oh, dude, well, Rogan was like the only podcast I ever listened to. And for me, the big thing, so like I didn't even want to do the podcast. Like I don't know how much I've even spoke about it. Dude, Dungy's the reason why I really started doing the podcast. Because we did that homegrown shoot where Dunge was in the cornfields. And
did you do that?
Yes. Yeah, so, well, not, I didn't do it, but I was on the crew. I used to work with Wes.
And I've never met you before?
Dude, maybe like at some point. Like, I was always around, but I just never really, like, I don't know. I just kind of stuck to myself a bit, I guess. But yeah, so we did homegrown, and me and Jeremy Malott are like fucking best mates. And Jeremy pretty much made me do this podcast with Dunge for homegrown to just get like audio for it. And he's like, if it's cool, we could post it. And then, anyway, Dunge after that was just like, dude, you should do this. Like, I actually spoke to him the other day. He messaged me and be like, man, I can't believe it. That's like 3 years ago. And you've just, you've done what you've done from it. And I said to him, I was like, man, you're actually like a big reason, because I'd worked with him so many times. And sometimes it was just like pulling fucking teeth just to get him to do anything. And, which is fair enough, because they're in the middle of their shit. And then, he said to me after we did this, it was like, I guess like the first ever Gypsy Tales. And he was just like, dude, you should really do this. Like, this was a very enjoyable experience for me. And I don't really enjoy this stuff that much. And after that, it was kind of like a weird collision of events, but then I had some visa stuff go down. I had to come back to Australia, and all I really had was like kind of the equipment from doing that podcast, and then I was just like, oh well, shit, I guess I'll do this. But so to get back to what you said about influence, I'd only ever watched Rogan, and then when I was back in Australia, and I was like, man, if I can't get my visa to go back to America, like I kind of need to figure out something to do. And I just didn't want to start the video thing again in Australia and just kind of like rebuild that. It's just a whole grind in itself, like I didn't have any clients. I'd been in America for like 8 years. And then, I just thought like there is no studio like what Joe Rogan has in Australia. So then honestly, my goal was just to like build that kind of studio. And I just had it in my head like, fuck, I feel like it could work if it was there. And that was kind of my first like influence. But oh dude, it just took so long. Like iTunes, it's always done well, but the YouTube thing, man, like it's just the biggest grind, and you've just got to like figure out that formula. And once you do, and you're kind of in the algorithm, then you can sort of just kind of fine tune and go from there.
You just got to stick with it. As you were talking, I kind of thought of what that influence was. So it was like snowboard films. Who's the guy that does like the documentary
Travis
style?
Rice.
Travis Rice, yeah. Rice, is that his last name?
Yeah.
That I would watch stuff like that, and I would think to myself, man, like I'm not necessarily the best racer, but I could free ride with the best of these guys. Like, I wish there was a career path to just never have to race and to just free ride. And then you saw like Ronnie Renner and these guys that seemed like they were kind of doing that. And now obviously there's Axel Hodges, there's Tyler Berryman, there's tons of guys that are doing just that. But that didn't exist 8 years ago, 10 years ago. I don't think, really. I mean, maybe one guy. And
especially not on YouTube, man. Like there was always the
no, not on YouTube.
There's always
but
been
in my
like
mind,
the movies
I saw
thing.
YouTube.
Yeah.
Sorry. In my mind, I saw YouTube as that outlet. As like, okay, I could do this myself. I don't need a giant film crew. I don't need a high budget ordeal. I think I was just forward thinking in that sense. Like, okay, I saw what YouTube was, and I'm like, this is the perfect outlet for that, and I can just create my own TV show to be able to put that out to the world and do whatever the heck I want. Where, like I said, I've grinded, and now it's at the point where it's making enough money to where I can hire a film guy. It's making enough money where I can do these things, and then that just makes it explode even more.
Yes.
Because any idea I think of at this point, I could just go do. I was like, oh,
it's crazy.
I was just going to say a really good idea. I can't say it, but we just have on my iPhone, we have a whole list of just video ideas. Yeah. And there's nothing stopping us from doing all of them.
Yeah, man. It's awesome. And I think more and more people are going to sort of come around to seeing like the power of YouTube and the community that you can build on there. But I think that you've been really forward thinking for a long time. Like even the Stewart video that you did, like Run the Stewart 125, like, dude, that's just like hacking culture. You know, like you got the skills to back it up. Then you went out, you got the bike, you picked the most iconic gear that he ever wore. Like that's a genius video. You literally hacked motocross, supercross culture to make that video. And it's like, there's no way that video cannot work. And it's fucking awesome.
That, man, when we talk about that, the whole trajectory of that whole thing could not have been written and scripted any better. I mean,
so break down that whole process.
It was insane. Like the Stewart one and the Pastrana one will likely forever be just staples of my life. I mean, those were two ginormous things. Between the video shoots were both absolutely amazing, and both races. I mean, I ended up doing great at both the races, and obviously with the Pastrana one, I almost killed myself, but it was best case scenario. So backing up to the beginning, I got a call from Jeremy at Red Bull. No, I didn't. I knew that I've always wanted to do straight rhythm from the year it first started. I'm like, that's right up my alley. No turns. Great. Okay. I'm good at jumps. I'm good at scrubbing. I'm good at whoops. I'm decent at starts. I could do this. So I got in touch with Steve Mathis, your best friend, and
boy.
and said, hey, Steve, do you know anybody at Red Bull that I can maybe reach out to and see if I can get an invite to this thing? Because that was right when they had announced that it was going to be two strokes and like a tribute.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was like, I have a good idea. I want to pitch it to him. So he gave me Jeremy at Red Bull's contact. I reached out to Jeremy, and we got on a phone call right away. And I go, all right, listen, James Stewart was my hero. I want to do Cowie 125 from, the 259 James Stewart era and everything. I'm like, I want to do a crazy video shoot, hype it up. Can we make this happen? Can I get into the event? And he's like, oh, heck yeah, man. I could get you the graphics. I have gear I could get you. We got all this stuff we can get you. And right from that phone call, it was like, all right, this is happening. So I think within that hour, I was scrolling through Instagram and I stumbled upon Spencer Luxack had the craziest custom 125 build you've ever seen. And Derek Anderson, I think it was, did a video shoot at his place in Park City, Utah.
Yeah.
And I saw a picture. I clicked in. I watched the video. I'm like,
that's
this
at
is the
Iron
bike.
Horse Ranch, right?
Yeah, I think that's what it's called.
Yeah.
Place is like amazing.
It's insane.
Amazing. And I go, I need that bike. It popped up right after that phone call. I'm like, I need that bike. So I shot him a message on Instagram. He responded. We got on a phone call and we agreed to making it happen. We agreed to doing the shoot at his place, and all of a sudden the ball starts rolling. And then I call my graphic guy. I'm like, all right, this is the graphics that I want to copy. I had 3 title sponsors that I was able to get on board literally overnight. And I'm like, we need to make these graphics or these logos look exactly like the graphics of this James Stewart bike. And AGMX, my graphic company at the time, did an amazing job tailoring the graphics to look exactly like his, but they're with all my sponsor logos. Reached out to Michael Lieb at Canvas MX, and then he custom did the zebra print, the pink and zebra gear, which ended up looking basically completely identical. I want to say I had a custom painted helmet done, all of this stuff. And this is happening quick. This isn't over the course of like 6 months. This is like 4 days. All of this is just happening. And man, the whole thing, the video turned out unreal. And then the way the race played out, I was actually darn fast, and I was going up against like really high power, like KTM 150s. You're allowed to race a KTM 150 at Straight Rhythm in the 125 class. So that year it was Carson Brown was on a modern day Husky. I don't know if he was on a 150, but that thing was fast, whatever the heck it was. And I'm on, I forget what year now. This is bad. 03 or 04, I think.
Yeah.
Cowie 125, a legit 03 or 04. It wasn't made to look old. It was old. And I'm doing rhythms that nobody else was doing. And like right away on that day, I'm like, wow, I'm feeling it. Like this is sick.
Yeah,
because I'm feeling that
Stewart
pressure.
energy.
Right. But I was feeling the pressure at first. I'm like, oh God, like I'm going to make a fool of myself if I don't kill it. But right away, right from the first free run, I'm like, this is it. I felt so dang good. And sorry, this coffee's killing me. And the races like went killer. I think I ended up getting second that night. And I didn't premeditate any of this. I don't know if you remember watching the race, but after I won my semifinal, I throw the bike on the ground and I did the sprinkler. Because I remember James Stewart in the 125 days, he would do a dance after every time he won. We would always look for everyone was like, all right, what's he going to do now? Didn't premeditate that. It would just like popped into my head. As soon as I won and crossed the finish line, I'm like, sprinkler. And I just started doing the sprinkler. And then I win whatever the next bracket was. And as soon as I win it, just worm. Never done a worm in my life. Did a perfect worm. And I'm like, where did that come from? It's just like I somehow was able to embody James. And then the Travis was a whole different thing. Like I've never felt energy. I've never had an out of body experience like that whole Pastrana thing.
Really?
When I watched that back, I mean, you've seen it, right? Where I Superman and then launched to the moon.
Yeah.
When I watched that back, I'm like, that wasn't me. There's no way that was me on that bike. Because I'm not like that. I'm the rider that dabs his foot in a corner and I'm like, whoa, I almost crashed. Let's back it down. Let's take a breather for a second.
Yeah.
I literally almost killed myself, got the feet back to the pegs, almost killed myself again because I launched however high in the air and then landed almost on the scaffolding. And as soon as my tires touched the ground and I realized I was alive, I just said, what would Travis do? And I'm like, Travis would just pin it and get back on the track and try to win this race. And so I just pinned it. I hopped right back onto the rhythm, went on off, did a one-hander fist pump over the wall jump, and then skimmed the whoops and was still barely a bike length behind him at the end. And it was just, I came over, Travis gives me a big hug. Like it was, because I was the fastest guy that night. I probably should have won, but what happened was 100% the best thing that could have ever happened.
Yeah, it was almost better, right?
Way better. If I had won, I mean, it still would have been cool, but it was just unreal.
And so with the Travis thing, so Trav was there at the event, and what was it like to, I guess, like how was that interaction with Trav, and have you had much to do with Trav before that?
No, I hadn't. So that was kind of the same thing. Red Bull announced that they're going to do the throwback again. And I don't know what it is. I have a creative mind when it comes to this stuff sometimes. And right away I'm like, all right, James Stewart, how are we going to top that? And I'm like, Travis Pastrana, duh.
Yeah.
I had a couple of heroes, Jeremy McGrath, Kevin Windham, Travis Pastrana, James Stewart, probably the 4 that stick out. And I'm like, Travis Pastrana, of all the racers, I could do pretty much all any trick you can name, I could do. Let's do it. And I text Jeremy at Red Bull. I'm like, hey, can you get me in touch with Trav? I just want to ask him if he has interest or if he would like give me his blessing to do this. So he puts us together on a group chat. Trav is all excited. Turns out I only live 30 minutes from him, where I am in Virginia. And I had
so you went and
no
did
idea.
that shoot at his house too, right?
Mm-hmm. Which worked out perfectly. And I had no idea. I typed it into my Google Maps and it was 35 minutes away. I'm like, all of this is meant to be, huh? So Trav was all excited. He invited me to his house to do the video shoot and rode with me the whole day. Had to keep stopping to like ice his limbs because he's so beat up, but filmed the whole day, helped like direct the video. I had never met him leading up to that point, but it felt like we were best friends that whole day. And then the day of Straight Rhythm, we pitted next to each other. We hung out the whole day. We talked lines, this and that. It was just like, talk about the nicest guy that you'll ever talk.
Oh, yeah.
I feel like I'm pretty nice, but he made me feel he just made me feel like a bad person.
Yeah.
Because I'll give an example. So we're doing our video shoot, Straight Rhythm. He had a mock setup at his house, and my video guy goes to film on the track, and we were riding one side. So he hopped on and he got on the wrong side to film, like the side that we were riding. And there was 15 people standing behind camera and nobody said anything to him. Like there had to have been one person there paying attention. So that got me mad. Like we came down the track, it kind of wasted a shot. We had to turn around. And I think I don't know if I said something, but I definitely thought it. I'm like, can't anybody tell him to just get to the other side?
Yeah.
And as soon as the words came out of my mouth, like Travis didn't say anything. Travis didn't care. I'm like, oh, I'm a bad person. Travis just like, no, it's okay, guys. Turn around, fire it back up. I'm like, this guy is so nice. And he gives everybody the time of day.
Yeah, you're so right, man.
And the person you would imagine that he is. It's kind of like Dungy. It's like, well, is Dungy really that nice? Yeah, from my experience, yeah, Dungy really is that nice. Same thing with Travis. The thumbs up, the giddy, this, that, like yapping your ear off, that's Travis.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, man, like you really nailed those 2 videos. And I mean, you've nailed a lot of videos, but you know, in those 2 examples, like, dude, just talk about like hijacking the culture of motocross in a super positive way. And it is genius, man. Like a lot of the stuff that you've done is just genius. And, you know, you've got the skills to back it up and make it look so good. You know, that moment at Straight Rhythm, it's just like, that is what, we watched Travis Pastrana on a 125 for like a second there, you know, legs off, still sending it, hop straight back on the track. Like, yeah, man, honestly, you nailed those 2 projects.
Thank you. Yeah, it was just so lucky to have it all come together like that. And if Straight Rhythm happens again, I have another amazing idea. I wish I could share it, but I can't. Yeah, it's going to be totally different. But yeah, I love it. And you're in the same space now, right? Where you can be creative and you have been the last 10 years. I love it. I love just coming up with ideas. I love just like hanging out and having a few beers, or I've been on a THC gummy streak the last 6 months or so. Just pop a 10 milligram gummy. Am I allowed to say that on YouTube? Pop a gummy.
Yeah.
And just like brainstorm and just get creative and just write these ideas down on my phone. And like now, and it's at the point now, like I said, where all of them are going to happen.
Yeah.
I get giddy talking about it. It's so exciting. The fact that we can just like do it. Yeah,
it's so cool, man. You are right. You kind of, I guess you do get to that point. How many, just out of curiosity, like what are you getting a month, like YouTube views wise? Like, are you kind of consistently, like, do you have like targets that you're like consistently trying to hit? About 2 mil?
Huh?
Yeah, about 2 mil.
That sounds really high. You're getting 2 million views a month?
Yeah.
So
we're low key killing it over here. Ronan in the back there, he's just smiling.
Wow. Man. How many let's look. So this month only 780,000.
Yeah, that's not only, that's still a lot.
2 million's unbelievable. How do I look at, I don't know how many videos are you posting? Because it seems like every time I turn around, you have another clip video going up.
Yeah, we're pretty much doing clips like every day.
Are you doing that, or do you have a guy that's cutting those?
So I've been doing it. Like you want to talk about that whole like grind for a while thing, and then it like slowly it automatically ramps up kind of deal. So pretty much like how it worked for the first 2 3/4 years was like me by myself. We had 2 cameras that recorded every podcast, all the audio. Then I recorded them. And then after every podcast, I had to sit down. I had to switch every single time everyone talked manually. So that's been like the last few years. And then in like, I think October, had Ronan come on board. He's like a moto kid from the area that rips, like sick fucking rider, sick filmer. And yeah, we just got together and it just sort of worked out. He just finished school. And then, yeah, so he's pretty much just like come here and started working full time. And that has been like a big game changer because I can just do a lot more like planning. I'm not sort of stuck. Like I still do quite a lot of editing as well. But like, you know, you share that load and it's just really let us, you know, be able to, I guess, you can look more zoomed out. You're not just like nose at a screen constantly. So yeah, that's been like a big part of it.
Well, and when you're grinding away, just doing the man hours, you don't really have you have much less time to be creative, to think about expanding. You're just like grinding away. And it's funny because you and I have seemed to kind of reach that milestone at the same time or pretty close to the same time. It's leveling up. It's that next step. And then it just opens up a ton of other opportunities. So, wow, 2 million. Now what's your average video length? Because does that affect your monetization if something is like, you have short clips, right?
Yeah. So that's probably what we're trying to do is just get that watch time up. But yeah, I mean, so because I was putting out, like people were getting a bit bummed that the full videos aren't on YouTube anymore, but it's just like people just don't watch it. Like people don't watch the full videos.
I don't watch full videos on YouTube.
Yeah, exactly.
I'll watch clips all day long though, because you got the caption, you got the thumbnail that kind of sucks you in. Like I click and watch your clips all day long. I love that.
Yeah, so that was like a big shift too, you know, like it's just once I really was like, nah, we're just going to do the clips thing and we're going to sort of work it out. And yeah, it's just a process of figuring out what thumbnails work, figuring out the way that the titles and stuff work. And then, you know, you got to build an audience. Like I'm a fan of your YouTube channel for you as much as the content. And I think that, you know, that just takes a long time to like build that kind of connection with the audience. And, you know, like, I mean, dude, for me personally, like I've even taken a lot of like riding stuff out of your videos. I still, every single time I get on the bike, I'm working on my technique. And, you know, so I think that there's just so much that goes into it more than even just posting the content. It's like, you've really got to be like a student of the game, like what, you know, really figure out like what adds value to people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's tough too, because for me, at least, any of my dialogue was either training students, which I can kind of use that personality, and I do for the YouTube stuff, or it was interviews. So it was a little bit tough for me to be completely myself on the videos. It was a little bit too scripted sounding. It was a little bit too like uptight in a way, right? And now like I've really found my lane, so to speak, and like my rhythm, and talking to the camera and engaging almost like as I'm talking, it almost is starting to feel like I'm talking directly to your audience. Where before it was like I was interviewing to a camera. Now like I'm talking to my audience.
That makes so much sense.
When I watch back my videos, I'm like, I note the difference from 12 months ago to the last 2-3 months of my videos. It's pretty cool because I believe they're actually entertaining now. Where before I'd watch it, I was like, good information. Like you can learn a lot, but the entertainment value I don't think was as high. Where now it's like I'm actually funny on camera sometimes. Like it's starting, like I've found that rhythm.
Yeah.
It's cool. I love it.
Yeah, no, I personally think you're doing a really good job, and like, there is that value thing that you're adding as well to people, and I think that you've there is a bunch of boxes that you've got to tick to be successful on YouTube, and that's like Jeff Walker, you know what I mean? Like that dude adds value. I watch his stuff, and you can watch his race vlogs to purely be a fan of him and how his racing's going, and you don't really care what his results are. You just sort of want to see him do well. You want to hear what he says about it. He's real honest. And then, you do like these lap time videos that he does and the suspension tip videos that he does. And it's like he's really adding value to people. He's providing like good looking footage. It's entertaining. So yeah, I think there is definitely like this new wave. And for me, I mean, at the start, I didn't really embrace like the whole Moto thing as well. I definitely didn't go as hard into it. I kind of was like, I'll just want to do a general interest podcast. And I mean, I think on YouTube, like 50% of the podcast that I do is non-motocross and 50% is motocross and supercross. But on the YouTube channel, like I only post the moto shit. And for me,
do you think it's important to stick to that niche, like as far as algorithms and stuff go? Like if you stray from that, does YouTube kind of screw you a little bit?
Yeah, pretty much. Well, not really. Like the audience doesn't give a fuck. Like people are watching those Gypsy Tales clips for cool supercross and motocross content. And
now, do you worry that your ceiling is going to be capped too low? Because I get sometimes a little like, I love the trend that you and I are both on, but where does that cap? Does it cap at 100,000? Does it cap at 500,000? Does it cap at 1 million? I mean, we've seen Deegan. Yeah, I think he just hit 1 million. So I guess it is possible, but also their channel covers a pretty wide variety of stuff.
Yeah.
I get concerned that I'll hit that ceiling.
Yeah, I mean, there definitely is that, but I think that the ceiling is pretty fucking high still. Like you're probably not going to end up with like millions of subscribers, but I mean, I feel like even at the level that I'm at right now, like I'm not milking that for what it's worth. So I think that the ceiling probably, at least this is my headspace, the ceiling probably isn't the problem. The problem is probably milking that stone. You know what I mean? Like getting the blood out of the stone for what it's worth. Because it's like you can grow and you can keep getting more and more and more and more views. And then with that, there'll be like just this trail that follows of income opportunities, whether it's like AdSense or extra sponsorship or whatever. But I feel like even if, like, let's say for the next, we go up pretty much every month in views. But let's say for the next 6 months, then I just kept doing 2 mil. I would be able to make more out of that by providing better, doing a better job with the content, better processes, better marketing, better sponsorship opportunities, like so I think that the ceiling thing probably isn't as much of a worry as just making sure that like you're getting the most out of what you already have, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. And it is a constant grind because you can never get ahead, it seems, right? No. It's like as soon as you think you're ahead, you're like, oh no, hang on a second, I got to get a video out tomorrow. Yeah. It becomes a little bit of a grind in that sense, but at least for right now and having the extra hands and the extra help to take that load off, it's enjoyable. It keeps it fresh. It makes race day fun. It gives me another focus on race day. Yeah. Where some people are like, oh, focus on your racing. Stop talking to that camera. I love that keeps my mind where it needs to be. If I'm thinking about racing the whole time, I'm going to be a nervous wreck.
Yeah.
I don't need to think about the future that much. I know what to do. When that gate drops, I know what to do. I don't have to think about it for 4 hours.
Yeah. That thinking about it's just going to get in the way of like what you're sort of doing.
Oh, I am a professional overthinker. I'll sit there and just think and think and think. I'm out there on the track thinking about everything. I'm in teacher mode all the time. That's the hard part is I'm just always in teacher mode. I'm out there in the middle of the LCQ watching guys in front of me like, oh, he should have put his foot here. He should have done this. Literally in the middle of a race.
Yeah, you got to quiet that shit down. Yeah, just to finish on the internet, like the YouTube sort of stuff. Like we're definitely going to start putting a lot more emphasis on, we've got a second YouTube channel, and I think that we're going to put all the full podcasts on that one, and then do clips that are like non-moto, because I think that, to your point, the non-motocross stuff, that probably isn't really a ceiling there. Like you could kind of take that as big as you can. But I mean, honestly, for like my goal, I sort of started talking about, and then we kind of veered off a little bit, but my goal, like, I didn't even really want to do the moto thing for a long time. Like I was just like, I'm going to build it exactly how I want it, and I'm not just going to focus on the motocross or whatever. But the thing is like, I actually, and I think that you probably would feel the same way, and Jeff would probably feel the same way, and the guys that are really doing well on YouTube, is that, like, I know for me, I get a lot of messages from people that say like, man, I've stopped racing completely. I'm in my 30s and like I never watched Supercross, and YouTube recommended your channel, and now I watch every single race. I just bought an 01 YZ250. Like, dude, I get that shit fucking constantly. And as soon as I started getting those messages coming in, I was like, oh, dude, this sport has given you everything. Like, everything you've ever done in your life has been through motocross. My dad raced. We grew up on bikes. I've never not had a motorcycle in my shed my entire fucking life. I traveled the world filming with motocross, and now the Gypsy Tales thing. So it's like, as soon as I started seeing those messages, I was just like, all right, this is what you do now to pay back the sport that's given you everything. And, you know, when you realize the power of that YouTube algorithm and reaching those audiences, and the fact that you can make new fans that buy new motorcycles and new gear and then buy tickets and support the industry, like, that to me is the goal. And you know, like that whole, all the thing that, you know, with Mathers and all the podcasts that are starting to come up now, like, I can see people changing. Like the media landscape, the podcast landscape, like, people are doing better thumbnails now. People are trying to do the whole titles thing. People are doing that shit. And I've said it for years in the background, and I've kind of said it publicly as well. Like, I look at the UFC. Like, I do jiu-jitsu every single day. That's like my shit. And I watch the UFC. I'm a huge fan of the UFC, and I'm a fan of like that machine of the UFC. And I'm a fan of the Chael Sonnens of the world that have their own podcasts. And I'm a fan of the Brendan Schaubs, and I'm a fan, like, I love Brendan Schaub. That's cool. That whole, like, what they're doing, like the Ariel Helwani's, like, if you watch their first videos, that looks like some Mathers shit. You know, like doesn't look that cool. It's not like the information's amazing, but it's not presented in a way that makes you think that the sport is on like this high level. And that was my whole goal with the Gypsy Tales thing, was like, all right, I'm going to present this package of Supercross in like a super fucking legit studio, really high quality thumbnails, doing the fucking clickbait thing that gets a lot of people watching these videos, building up people that aren't necessarily like it's so easy to talk about Roxon and Cooper, and you know, like that shit's easy. Like that's the cream that you can go after. But it's like, how do we elevate like everyone else, and you know, like the Jeff Walkers and like all of like the stuff that you're doing? Like, how do we give everybody these kind of storylines that people can buy into, and then present it in like this high quality way, so that if you're a fan, or like you're even just on the fringe, like you're not even really a fan, but you can click in because you're like, fuck, this looks really good. And then it just like slowly starts sucking people in. And so, yeah, once I started seeing that happening and getting those messages, I was like, damn, we could fucking all elevate this sport, and we could just start looking like the UFC. All of these different commentators, these great podcasts, people from all over, riders starting their own shit, athletes doing their own thing. And then when you look from the outside in as a fucking Manscaped or a Black Rifle coffee company, and it's like, fuck, there's like a crazy audience here. Like, this is a great looking sport. And the thing that I think a lot of people forget, like we talk about the sport struggling with sponsors and shit like that, but it's like, man, we have a great demographic, young, male, good jobs if you can afford to buy a motorcycle. Like, there's some good shit that is in this sport for like brands and advertisers that aren't in moto. And I think that, yeah, so as soon as I started seeing that, I was like, all right, this is almost like a duty that I have to try and use the skills that I've got to actually try and fucking lift the sport. That gave me everything.
It's got to be the future, right? I mean, I think we luckily have a little bit of a head start on it, and I hope that, I keep telling my camera guy Cam too, I'm like, I want to get to 100,000 before everybody has a YouTube. Get me to 100,000. We got to get there before everyone and their brother has a YouTube channel, before Jet Lawrence gets a YouTube channel, before all these guys create a YouTube channel. But that's going to be the future, because think about, I mean, and we're doing it right here. Like, this stuff transcends. Yeah. I have people coming up to me at the races that seem to barely know what a dirt bike is, or have literally just gotten into the sport.
Yeah.
Barely know who a Roxon is or a Tomac. They could care less about them, but they somehow found me on YouTube. Yeah. And they're coming to my pit at the Supercross, and now they're hooked on the sport. And that is what creates value for a sponsor.
Yes.
That creates more value than any result, any podium. Unless you're Kawasaki trying to sell Kawasaki's for Black Rifle coffee, for anything else. That's what, again, I don't want to toot my own horn here, but I'm not saying me, but just what I'm doing is what creates the value.
100%. Yeah.
And that's why I have the sponsors that I do. That's why I have Black Rifle hopping on board. That's why that's why I was with Lululemon for the past 4 years. That's why I've been with all these really cool companies that everybody's like, hang on a second, how is AJ Catanzaro getting this stuff?
Yeah.
And it's a perfect storm for me of creating that media content, of doing the classes and being in front of the students. So that's killing two birds in one stone right there, because the media content, all of the content on YouTube, whatever the heck, that's the value for Black Rifle. They don't care about Supercross. They don't care about my even instructing stuff. But then the instructing stuff covers anything motocross related. EVS, give me a promo code for EVS. I'm going to get more people to buy EVS knee pads with that promo code than probably most guys. Because guess what? I'm at class. I have these guys up on the stand. I go to put them in the attack position. Oh, hang on a second. You don't have knee pads on, dude? Hang on. Take this 20% off, 30% off EVS. You need to get knee pads on your knees next time you ride. And 6 students Every single class. Show up next one and they have EVS TP 199 knee pads.
Yeah, that's so sick.
And that's the small stuff, but the content side of things, that will unlock endless opportunities. And that's what will unlock big time stuff for the Malcolm Stewarts, the Ferrandises. Like Roxon has like that watch deal. Roxon has some cool stuff because he's Roxon, right?
And he's got Steve Astafin.
Yep, that's helpful as well. So, but I'm trying to think. I'm drawing a blank on names, like a Plessinger, like a Mookie, like pretty much all of those guys. There's if they all just created a YouTube channel and they make enough money. Why hire? I don't want to say this because I do want to get a little bit more of a head start before they do it. But
yeah, I
was talking to Dino and I'm like, Dean, you make enough money, man. Hire somebody to be a full-time film guy. And he already kind of has a good base on YouTube. He probably, I guarantee he has way more subscribers than I do, even though he doesn't do it.
Dude, his Grandpa Earl video would pay for a filmer. Just the monthly on that would pay for a filmer.
100%. I mean, if he started putting out consistent videos, once or twice a week, that would pay for itself instantly. Yeah. He'd be making a profit instantly, not to mention building his audience even more than it already is. The fact that more people aren't doing that doesn't make sense. Unless this is the only thing I thought of, unless their team or their manufacturer is saying or really limiting how like open they could be. Because for me, I'm pretty censored. Kind of. I mean, I don't know. I say stupid stuff sometimes. I got myself in trouble on a podcast before, but I kind of just say whatever. And I don't know if those guys could do that or not.
Yeah, but I don't even think you really have to. Like, I don't think you have to be purposely controversial. Like, I don't really think I ever say that much controversial shit. Like, I just say how I think about stuff. And I think that I probably got a unique lane. Like, the thing is, right, that I would say to guys like Dino, and I said this, that we just talked about it the other day, actually, about, Dino's fucking perfect, man. Like, he could do his own thing and instantly be killing it. But there's like this sense of security that you have when you're just got like an independent artist, essentially, because you think about a motocross rider that rides for a team. They're like an artist that's on a record label. And they get told the producers that they have to use, like the mechanics, and they get told like the gear that they've got to wear, and they, it's like a very controlled environment. But then like I look at myself, for instance, and I think about the same thing with like Wygant. I mean, Mathis kind of, I feel like he's pretty much his own dude. Like he could tell everyone to fuck off and he'd be completely sweet. But it's like there's a freedom in building your own platform and getting your own shit. And like, I think about, for Dean, I mean, I'm really good friends with Dean. We've been friends for over 10 years. And I think about him and the weight that he must feel of like keeping his ride. Imagine if you've got 500,000 fucking YouTube subscribers, you're putting out 2 videos a week that are getting 100K, and you've got a community, you're selling your own merch, you're doing... Fuck a team.
Dude, that's where I'm at. That is where I'm at.
Yeah, they ain't going to fire you if you're getting that level of promo for them. So there's that. And B, if they fire you, fuck a team. Again,
I will say, when you get... So there's levels to it. I've gotten to a level to where it's almost like having FU money. Yeah. It's like, I don't need a team. I could do whatever the heck I want. I'm going to Cancun tomorrow on my 2-week break before Atlanta Supercross. Everyone was asking me yesterday at the race, AJ, what you do? Where are you going to train on your 2-week break? Oh, I'm going to Cancun, man. See you guys.
I'm going to fuck in Cancun.
I'm going to Cancun. So, but how cool is that? I could do whatever the heck I want, and that's awesome. The only thing you have to be careful of is that can bite you as far as racing, obviously, right? Because I find myself in situations when I use that to help with pressure, because I'll be sitting on the line sometimes and be overly nervous, and I'll be like, you know what? Who cares? I make plenty of money. I don't even need the race. I could pull off right now. That can help, or it can hurt you, because sometimes I'm out there in the middle of an LCQ and guys are cross jumping and stuffing me, and I'm like, what am I doing? I'm going to make $1,500 tonight for what? Like, it's dangerous, like, headspace to navigate, if that makes sense, right? It's very easy to become complacent with that. Like, if Dino got to that point, would that take away that fire, and would Dino not be Dino on the track anymore?
Yeah, but see, I don't know. I think for Dino, and like knowing Dino too, like he puts a lot of pressure on himself, and I think a lot of that comes from, like, he was a privateer a couple years ago. Like we lost Dino to factory teams, and he did it on his own. Like, he's seen the other side, and I think that he knows how hard that was. He knows how hard that was in his family. And, you know, like when you're on the Husky program and you're in Florida and you're doing that whole deal, like, I mean, to stay on a team, like, that comes with so much weight. And I think that weight just wears on you if the results aren't there. And, you know, there's only so far you can get by being like the nice dude, you know, with the team. Like, at some point they're like, hey, like, we fucking love you, but you're not getting the results. So I think that you are right. Like, you can definitely get complacent, and you can get a bit cocky or like comfortable, and knowing that you've kind of, like, that's a crutch you can lean on. But it's like, man, if that takes the pressure off, like, you just stressing on a ride constantly, to where it's like, and then it can be fun. Like, it sounds like you're in a good place where you're like, hey, I can go and I can have fun at these races. Like, you want to try, like, you want to do good. I don't think that will kind of leave. And I think that, you know, those doubts that you're having of like some dudes cross jumping you in the LCQ, I mean, Dino's probably getting that, where it's like, I'm only making 300 grand a year, you know, like, I don't know what he's making, but it's like, I think if those thoughts enter your mind, they'll enter your mind at any level.
Yeah, that's a good point. But yeah, to just piggyback that thought, this year, each weekend, if I'm ranking it a 1 to 10 on a fun scale, I'm at a 10. That's enjoying awesome. My day. I'm enjoying my fan interactions. I'm enjoying the heck out of free practice, out of time qualifying, out of the heat race, out of the LCQ. I'm loving it. Rewind to 2014 when I was result-wise killing it. I was probably at a 5 on the fun scale.
Yeah.
If that. Probably even less.
And what was
I wasn't enjoying... Say that again?
And what was that about? Where was that? Those 5 points? Where are you losing those 5 points back then?
Oh, just stress of like, I need to do this. I have to place here. If I don't finish in this spot, I'm off the whatever team I'm on. Or I don't know if it was just maybe all in my head, but it was just taken too seriously all the time. I wasn't really... in the moment, I wasn't really that present. I was constantly anxious about the future, and I didn't like that. I couldn't appreciate 2013, 2014. I had 4th place finishes, 5th place. I was top 10 like crazy in main events. I barely remember any of it, like, because I wasn't present. I was just kind of going through the motions and a nervous wreck all the time because there was so much pressure put on me from the outside and from myself. It's not like that anymore. I show up at a race and I'm having a blast. I'm on the line, like, joking around with guys. Like, I'm cracking up with my mechanic. Like, that's awesome.
Yeah,
and,
dude.
You know,
there's
bring it full circle. That freedom allows me to do that. Right?
Yeah. 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 And man, it's like, there's so much to be said for that. Like, enjoying it. And, you know, like I said, now you really do add value. Like, man, since I started talking about you on the podcast, I have that many motherfuckers sending me your shit just constantly. Oh, did you see it? And I mean, Grant, I don't watch that much content. Like, I pretty much don't watch anything these days. So I'm not really watching a lot of people's videos. And it's just like, man, people are just sending me all this shit constantly. I'm like, dude, I'm not really watching this stuff. I've got like way too much other shit to do. But there's like a lot of people that really enjoy what you do. And it's just like,
you get a lot of people, a lot of AJ haters, because I feel like there's a lot of those floating around for some reason.
I actually don't have
unless
a lot
that's just
of
me.
AJ
Is that
haters.
for anybody? Like, do you have a lot of people that are in your inbox, like blowing you up with hate?
I don't really get it, because I just kind of don't give a fuck. Like, I don't like the shit that my mum says all the time, and I love her. So, like, how is somebody that's a complete stranger to me? Like, I don't expect that people would like me or like everything that I say. There's people that I love, and I don't like all the shit they say.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you certainly have to take it all with a grain of salt, for sure. I obviously, I know where a lot of this stuff stems from on my end, but
What do you think it is?
because
I haven't really encountered or seen much of like the AJ hate.
Well, man, when was it? Probably 3 years ago now. I was on I'll just tell the story, man. I'll just tell the story. I gotta get my side of the story out there. You probably don't even know what I'm about to talk about. Remember the whole Buttery situation?
Oh, dude. What did you say about him? Because yeah, keep going. What did you say about him?
Okay. So, because this bums me out, because I really truthfully try to be so nice to everybody all the time, and I freaking dropped the ball on this one. So I was on a friend of mine's podcast that I can only guess at this time maybe had 20 listeners.
Yeah.
This was a brand new podcast. Nobody was listening to this thing yet. I'm talking to him on the podcast, making eggs. I think I was taking my dog out for a walk. I'm like paying zero attention. The conversation gets brought up about, I want to state this as precisely as possible so I don't get in trouble again. The conversation comes up about riders, young kids, age 8 to 16, emulating the riders of today that they're seeing. So for me, like I said, James Stewart, Jeremy McGrath, Kevin Windham, I would like throw in a VHS and watch like Terra Firma or Crusty Demons.
Yeah.
Like that's how I learned how to ride. Kids nowadays are going on Instagram and scrolling through and watching clips of guys just railing corners or hitting a jump, and like a lot of those guys, this is the whole statement I was trying to make. A lot of those guys aren't guys that you necessarily should be emulating your riding style after. And I described a couple guys that 100% you should. I said Axel Hodges, unbelievable on a dirt bike. Technique, flawless. Great rider. Emulate him. And then I went on to state how Buttery, I'm trying to think how I said it. I don't even want to say it again because I would probably get clipped and then taken out. I said that he sucked. Not only did I say he sucked, but I also said his name. Like, I don't know what I was thinking. So Buttery does not suck.
Is his name not out in public or something? Or you just said, did you say Buttery?
What
or
I mean
his
is like,
name?
I could have just, no. I'm saying like, I said Buttery sucks.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
I should have just said there's other guys out there that aren't so good. I shouldn't have directly stated who it was, and then I certainly shouldn't have used the adjective sucked. So then I go, yeah, he just sucks. You shouldn't emulate him. And that was the worst thing I could have said, because he doesn't suck. But when you watch him ride, his technique isn't somebody that you should necessarily emulate. And that doesn't matter.
Yeah.
His content is his content. It's great. He has the viewers that he has because he does a great job with what he does. He rides a dirt bike for fun. It doesn't matter if his technique is perfect.
Yeah.
Just to try to like protect myself as much as I can here. That doesn't matter. I was just using that to prove my point, which ultimately my point didn't matter. But I just described it absolutely terrible. Like terribly. And the backlash from that was like nothing I've ever experienced.
That's insane.
First of all, I forgot I said it because I wasn't paying attention, right? And Buttery, I don't even know his real name. He actually seems like a nice guy. I'm sorry. Jeez, I'm sorry. Like, I'm sure I would get along with him just fine.
He's a super nice dude.
Seems it.
Yeah.
He seems nice. Like when he talks to people in interviews, he seems really respectful and actually like articulate.
He's a super
nice.
smart motherfucker.
Yeah. So I freaking dropped the ball on that one. Forgot I did it. And then like a week later, somebody I can't even remember who it was. They call me and they go, dude, what did you do? And I'm like, what happened? They're like, go on Instagram. I click into Instagram and shit is hitting the fan. And I'm like, what? So I go to Buttery's page and it's a video of him riding and then a long caption of this professional rider, like in quotes, bashing me for just having fun on a dirt bike. He definitely he knew what he was doing with that, right?
Yeah.
If he was given just that, if somebody maliciously grabbed that clip, and just clipped the part where I said he sucks on a dirt bike, which is probably all he heard. Yeah. Right. If he heard it in context, he would have probably maybe understood a little bit more. Still didn't sound great, but maybe he would have understood a little bit better. He probably just heard that clip. He reposted that clip, posted this long caption to it. Cooper Webb, you name every top rider is commenting, what a tool, this and that. I'm like, oh God, what did I do? And I'm pretty sure that was right after the James Stewart thing. I'm like, man, I was on top of the world and then I just blow it. And the backlash and how aggressive his people were.
Yeah.
Brutal. Yeah. This was 3 years ago. I'm still getting people commenting, get a clue. I'm still getting people commenting all of this stuff thinking I'm a terrible person.
Get a clue.
Holy crap. I certainly learned my lesson on that. But to circle back, I'm pretty sure that's where a lot of the hate comes from. And I think people think I'm a dick because I don't know. I would never ever maliciously say or do anything bad to anybody ever. But sometimes I have verbal diarrhea and something comes out of my mouth and it gets taken the wrong way. And I'm kind of like monotone in my delivery. I feel like I can come off as a know-it-all sometimes, which I really don't like. Like when I listen to myself sometimes and I feel like I just sound like a dick. I got to be careful.
Yeah, I mean, it's just part of growing up though, right? Like you're 27, like you're fucking young still. And if that was 3 years ago, you're 24. Like you don't know fucking anything at 24.
Yeah, right. And I thought I knew everything at 24. But looking back at 24, at 27, I'm like, what an idiot.
Oh, yeah. I mean, and I'm 32. I'm sure by the time you get to 32, you'll be like, fuck, 27-year-old me didn't know shit.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
But yeah,
so
I think...
needless to say, I get some bad stuff in my inbox a lot of the time.
Well, I'd agree. Like, even... I laugh sometimes, like, some of the videos that I've like watched where you're coaching dudes, you're like so fucking blunt to people. And it's like,
yeah, see, exactly. Like I got to be careful with that too, because they'll come off and they'll be like, well, how'd I do? I'm like, well, that sucked. And then
the thing
I'm
is
like,
though, man,
maybe
like,
I shouldn't have said that.
I mean, I feel I've got a bit of that in myself as well. There's so much shit I say on Supercross Companion and I'm like, you're such a fucking idiot. Like you should not be saying that shit. But
the intent
in my defense,
is what should matter. Right? You never have malicious intent. You say things that can be interpreted a certain way and maybe not sound completely perfect, but the intent is not malicious. In my mind, that's all that matters.
I think too, like one of the things when I watch your shit and I see you being like that brutal with people, it's like, and I feel like the same thing with me. I now have it's turned into a thing of me hating on Thor gear. And it's just like, fuck, that sucks. I don't want to hate Thor gear. Thor gear was like my favorite shit growing up. I'm Australian, Chad Reed, like put two and two together. That was the shit.
But you keep finding yourself talking badly about it by accident?
it's disgusting. Like some of the new shit that these dudes and it's on the podium every fucking weekend. I don't want to hate Thor, but I ain't gonna lie to people. And it's like, so to sort of circle back, it's like when I hear you being so blunt with someone, I'm like, well, at least you know when he says you did good, you fucking probably did.
Mm-hmm. That's true. Yeah, I think that's a good way to be for the most part. It's just in 2021, unfortunately, you got to be a little careful.
Well,
a little careful.
It would be easy to hate on you because you're like the pioneer of what you're doing. You know, like you're 20th place guy, right? You know what I mean? Like you're not making mains in the 450 class, which as we've discovered is not a fucking easy thing to do. So that's not a problem. But it's like you've got this massive YouTube channel. You've got a huge audience. You're putting yourself out there in a big way. And it's not like you're, one of the top guys in the sport. And it's easy for people to come after you. And I think it was the same. That's what we sort of saw at the start of this year is like it was easy for people to come after me. Like I'm doing something completely different. It's so easy to I guess like try and discredit you based on not really having all the information. That's what people tried to do. And it's fucking easy. Like, so I think that, going back 3 years ago, you're going on a podcast and you've got this YouTube channel, you're doing your own thing, you're pretty blunt in the way that you talk to people. It's just easy to hate. So that is like a recipe there. But man, like I just think that as time goes on, it's just going to be a completely different story for you.
Yeah, and you wonder where that stems from people, man. I always wonder. Like some of the comments that I read are so far out of left field. You just have to wonder.
Like YouTube comments?
Yeah, like what type of headspace? Who is that person? Like, who is that person that's sitting behind their computer screen and writing some of the terrible, terrible things that they're doing? You even forget about me. Like when Dino did what he did to Roxanne.
Oh, right. Yeah, that pissed me off, that one.
Could Dino have handled that situation better on the track? 100, obviously. But does he deserve to die? Like, does he deserve like all of the things that people were saying? No, man. I think what happens is that you get to a certain point and people can't make the connection between that it's a human being on the other side of the screen. Yeah. It's a human being. Dean Wilson is a human being. He's not just a professional dirt bike rider. He is an actual human being. One. That has feelings, that can get sad, that can read a comment and be like, oh man, that sucks. That was mean. And that stuff affects you. As much as all of us can say, I don't care. It doesn't bother me. I get 1 million of those a day. It doesn't affect me. I'll tell you right now, when I'm reading through my YouTube comments, I catch myself, and I'm very conscious about this. When I'm reading through comments, I scroll quickly through the ones that are nice. AJ, your stuff is awesome. AJ, great job. You look great out there. I'm just scrolling by it and not even appreciating it sometimes. I catch myself doing that. And then I catch one where it's a longer sentence and I start to read. And I'm like, this mother effer. And I'm like, then I go to respond and then I delete it or then I don't even send it. And I'm like, why is that getting my attention? And all of the nice things aren't.
I think that there's something primal going on there, man. I think it's like we have just a inbuilt negativity bias because the things that are negative, like essentially your subconscious mind is just trying to keep you alive. And we live in a weird world now where like we're not really under threat of survival. And I think that part of us still exists. So anything that is negative falls into that kind of survival instinct. So like the positive shit is just like, there's no paying attention to positivity is like not really going to help you survive. What's going to help you survive is like excluding negativity. And just because we don't really have like an actual survival need these days, like you reading YouTube comments, like there's nothing intrinsic to your survival in that. But those same wheels are turning to where like you pay attention to the negative, like a stick or a snake. Like if you see a fucking stick on the ground, you're like, wait, is that a snake? And then you're really checking that shit out. Whereas if you're seeing a flower, you don't give a fuck about a flower.
That's a interesting way to look at that. I think you're right. Yeah, because I am very, very conscious about it, because I tried to keep everything on, and not just in YouTube comments, but any part of my life, as positive and optimistic as possible. So, and I'm very intentional about that. I'm not just like la-di-daing around and like hoping that good things happen. Like I'm very intentional with where my energy is and all of that. And even as conscious as I am about it, like you were just saying, instinctively, it just, hang on a second, what did this person say? Hold on a second. And I'm doing a good job, I think, of breaking the habit, because anytime I do press send, because I just want to like make the person look foolish.
Yeah.
I always feel badly about it, because I'm like, then as soon as I hit send, I'm like, oh man, what I just said was so mean. And like this person probably is sad to begin with, to be sending a message like that in the first place. And then usually if I do hit send and respond back, I'll go back 5 minutes later and then delete it. Cause I'm like, I don't want to make that person's day any worse. That's how I look at it.
Yeah.
Cause I go, I want to be funny here and respond back, and then make them feel a little bit bad about themselves. And as soon as I hit send, I'm like, I can't do that. I don't want to hurt that person.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like a weird thing. Like, I mean, I'll reply to dumb shit almost as like a troll. Like we posted this thing about Aaron Plessinger the other day, like how he's kind of like the Supercross cowboy, just, you know, building up that brand that he's got going on. And then someone wrote this massive comment, and it started with like, AP hasn't done shit since Loretta's. And then like, I didn't even read the rest of the comment. It was like a huge paragraph. And then I just wrote back, I was like, bruh, you lost me at Aaron Plessinger hasn't done shit since Loretta's. Like, that's it. I'm done, you know? But it's like, you don't need to rip that person down. But I just reply to the comment as a funny thing of like, okay, man, you're off the mark here. I stopped listening. But yeah, I mean, dude, I've got to the point where I'm just pretty much like ruthless business mode with it now, where I'm like, I just see it as engagement. I just could not give a fuck. But I think that there's a point where negative comments are good if, like, the ones that really hurt are the ones that they're right. And, you know, like there's a video. The hard thing with the clips is that there might be a clip that I post from this podcast where I'm fucking talking for most of it. And then if you don't have the context that this was a full 3-hour deal that we did, and over the course of that 3 hours, AJ spoke way more than me. But if I post one clip where you say like 3 sentences and I fucking talk for 5 minutes, people are like, geez, this guy doesn't ever let his guest talk. And you're like, well, you just don't really have the context, you know? But there's this one video with Chad where I'm like kind of arguing with him almost and like cutting in, and it's like people would just fucking ripped me, dude. Like 3,000 comments of just like complete hate. And then they're kind of right.
There's a little bit of weight to that, because if you have 3,000 comments kind of leaning one direction, it may not be as extreme as those comments are, but you could reflect and be like, okay, maybe I could have done this slightly different. Right?
Yeah.
If you have the one rogue comment, that's not going to help you out. But if you have a bunch kind of saying the same thing, and maybe in a mean way or whatever, there could definitely be some truth to that. Now, are you like reading the positive? What's your dog's name?
Big bad dog.
As I'm sipping out of my mug that says "Dog Dad" on it, I'm a dork.
What were you just asking? Oh, the positives. Fuck, I don't know.
Like, are you responding to people's nice comments and stuff, or are you just posting and then you're out of there?
Oh, I'll do. I just do it from like the YouTube, the creator studio. Like, I'll look at the comments and then I'll just kind of refresh it and reply to shit. Like, because I do. There's a real big value to the community. Like, people want to be a part of the community, and I think that like, I don't want to be the kind of guy that just like ignores people and thinks like, oh, I'll post a video and just fucking dip and then go do my life. Like, the podcast is my life. So yeah, I do try and respond and shit, but I feel like it doesn't really like hit me. It doesn't make, I don't really feel good from it. Like, I've tried to disconnect from like a good feeling. Like, I don't want to read positive comments to make myself feel positive. I just want to reply to make them feel good about sending it to me. Because I just don't really, I don't want any validation to come from people liking it. The comments that I really, really like are the comments where people are getting into the sport. That's the one, like, and the comments where people say they bought books, because I talk about books fucking heaps. And not so much on the Moto podcast, but like on the other ones that I do with a lot of other guests, like I'll really talk a lot about the different books I've read and different things like that. So like pretty much the best YouTube or the best comments I could get on socials or YouTube are, I wasn't a fan of Supercross and I just bought a new bike, or I just bought a book you recommended. They're the ones that actually make me feel good. Everything else I'll just try and respond to make the other person feel good and a part of like the community that we've got going on, you know?
Do you have any sort of community, like a Patreon or something like that, where you have exclusive content, you have like even a tighter knit community?
I started the Patreon, but I just couldn't really commit to doing it all just because I was by myself at that point. But I feel like it probably would be a good thing to start doing again. Just time, like if you're gonna do it.
I would consider it, yeah. So let's see. I started it, I don't know, maybe 6 months ago or so.
Oh, so you do Patreon?
I have 533 patrons.
Wow.
Just $2 a month. Some people do more. So it's a few $1,000s a month already.
That's awesome.
The way I have it structured is that I'll put up posts with, oh shoot, my camera just died.
Oh, cool. Just put a new battery in and then just press record again. Yeah. We'll just break for a sec.
Good?
Yeah, a little halftime break. That's perfect.
Hey, by the way, don't want to jinx it, but this is going really smoothly so far. Like, you haven't skipped or cut out or anything yet.
Nah, it's good, this system that we've got. And dude, like the US studio is going to be the Cali studio money.
Well, if I'm welcome, I want to come back and I'll have to fly there and make it happen.
Oh, dude, yeah. If you go to California at all, like if you're there for testing, or just literally tell me and then just jump on.
Because I get jealous. Is Sleater living out there now?
Yeah. Sleater's in Gold Coast now.
Because he's always on with you, and I'm like, man, I want to shoot the shit with him on and be on there and do that type of stuff. It's fun. Well, I don't know, especially like the race breakdown stuff.
Yeah, man. Dude, Supercross Companions like fucking nightmare. Like, it's honestly just like the commitment. We skipped yesterday, which sucks because yesterday's race was fucking insane. But yeah, like, man, every Sunday we're in here, like, it's just the biggest process, and then you got to get it on iTunes. The craziest thing about Supercross Companion, dude, so many fucking people listen to it on iTunes. It's insane.
Do you watch the race live, or do you guys all like do a truce to not watch it and then watch it after?
No, so we all watch it live. So it's playing on Peacock TV, and then we stream it live on YouTube. We've got like 600, 700 people in the chat room, like on the live chat with us while we're doing it. The live chat's become like the most fun part of the whole deal.
I wish there was a way for, I'm sure there is. How cool would it be if like I was able to call in or something after my heat race or something, dude, and then just update you guys on the track conditions and like tell you what 100%. To look out for.
Yeah, do that 100%. Cool.
Yeah, hey, I'm in, because I feel like that'd be cool, and for the listeners to like, and for you guys even to have a certain perspective on what's going on.
Yeah, dude,
this weekend's track was sick though. Yeah, do it. I mean, whatever. If I need to buy something or whatever, I'll do it. I think that'd be sick.
Yeah, that'd be epic. Yeah, what'd you think of the track this weekend? It was a good track.
By far the best track we've had yet. And I think
Really?
everybody realizes that. So why can't Dirtworks recognize that everybody's saying that and all the riders agree on that, and then make more tracks like similar to that? Long lanes, a lot of big 180 bull turns, huge rhythms that created a ton of rhythm opportunities, a long set of big whoops that didn't turn into jumpers right away, a long start with a 180 turn that made for a fair first corner. Everything about that track, the characteristics, makes for a good racetrack. Where we've had 2 good racetracks this year, maybe 3.
Really?
All of the rest, the rest have been terrible. Like, the whoops have been built so that everybody's jumping right off the bat, which I'm going to sound like a complainer, but in my opinion, that's not Supercross. Like, Supercross, I think we should be skimming. If they're going to be jumping through whoops right off the beginning, I get it. Halfway through a main event, when it's getting out of control and you got to just figure your way out through there, fine, start jumping. But if we're jumping from the first free practice, just put a freaking rhythm section there. Why is there even a set of whoops?
Yeah,
Whoops
that's
should
true.
be skimmed until they break down. And this is very that's subjective. That's an opinion. But that's just how I feel. And then also when you have like the tight 90-degree turns and and the rhythms that are simple. And I don't want to confuse your listeners by saying simple, because they're not simple. But when you can't create options, and when the top 40 guys are doing everything, that doesn't make for a great racetrack. This weekend was gnarly. You would have got a kick if you had been there and watched 450A group and 250A group first free practice. I have never seen anything like it. Nobody jumped anything.
Really?
McAdoo tried one rhythm, overshot it, didn't try it again. In the 450, I saw like 2 guys jump one of the options. What you saw in the main event and in the heat race, nobody jumped any of that in free practice. And barely any of the guys jumped it in first time qualifier.
Wow.
It was really,
awesome.
I was watching, dude, usually I watch 250A and 450A and I formulate my game plan based on that. I watched those 2 practices and I'm like, what do I do?
What am I going to do?
Like, am I just going to be going double, double, double around this entire track? I didn't know what the heck was going to happen. And that's sick. Like, that's Supercross. That's technical. I think that's cool.
Yeah, man, this was, it sucks that we didn't do Supercross Companion because, man, I absolutely loved watching racing this weekend. Man, the 450 main event from this weekend was one of, I think, the most technical and clinical main events I've ever seen. Those 4 dudes, like, I'm bummed Sexton wasn't up there, because after the speed he had in the heat, he could have been another cat amongst the pigeons. But the Eli Tomac Barsha battle, the way that Eli was putting pressure on Webb, and then that brought them up onto the back of Kenny, who was like out of there, and then the way that Coop was able to pass Kenny. Like, Jesus, that main event had everything, and it had everything to do with the track.
It did. And so TV did justice of how good of a race that top 4 group was then?
Yeah, it was incredible. Like, it was such a good racing experience, or like viewing experience.
Nobody messed up. The top 4 guys rode such a flawless race. It was
except
hard
for
for me to
Eli
even...
when he hit that. Eli hit that bail after the finish. That was like the only mistake anyone made.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that. That was a pretty big mistake too. Yeah. Other than that, not a single mistake. Maybe Roxon messed up the sand a couple laps. I think Webb was a little bit cleaner in the sand, but barely. Everywhere else, that was a flawless race from those 4 guys. And it was like, watching that in the stands, it was suspenseful, because you would... Tomac would put pressure on Webb, and then they would catch, like, the pressure would create, it would just close the gap.
Yeah.
Even more. It was just insane. I mean, the level of riding, I don't know how they go that fast, that long. When you watch a main event, it feels like forever.
Yeah, it is. It's so gnarly.
They're just riding at a ridiculous level for so long and not messing up and having somebody on your freaking butt the whole time. Those dudes deserve every penny they make and then some. It's just like, that is so next level.
Yeah, dude. It's crazy, man. Like, I just don't want to risk being a name dropper, but I just think it's so sick in terms of the sport. Fuck, I'm trying to think if I can, yeah. There's guys that text me from like Formula One, from Moto GP, like that are just hardcore Supercross fans. Like hectic every single weekend. We're texting about the Supercross races, and these are dudes that are like at the Moto GP, at the like in Bahrain doing fucking Formula One testing, and they're by their phone watching Supercross. I'm not sure that people in Supercross have perspective of how respected these athletes are. And I like that. It was one thing I never knew when I started the podcast, that I would have all of these guys reaching out just as like these hardcore fans of these riders. And it's just like, I don't think the average Supercross fan understands how loved and adored these guys are by the best athletes in the world, especially like the top tier motorsport guys. And I think like that's one thing whenever I'm like down on the industry, or I'm like fucking, like I wish it was like this, I wish it was like that. I just think I'm like, if those guys that are making millions and millions and millions of dollars, and if they're looking at our dudes like, fuck, they're elite, like they are top level, at some point, if we keep doing it right, they're going to catch up.
Yeah, that's cool. That's actually really cool to hear too. I
don't think people know, dude.
It's deserved, like the level that it takes to compete like those top four guys competed on Saturday. Even for me, we'll just call me, I'm a 28th place 450 Supercross guy right now. I ride the track at a pretty high level, I feel like. I mean, I watch video of myself, I watch GoPro stuff, I'm like, oh, I'm going pretty good.
Yeah.
The speed, all of it, the speed that they're riding is crazy. The obstacles, especially in this track, that they're jumping lap after lap after lap, as the track is deteriorating nonetheless, is terrifying. The fitness required to ride a 450, which, for those of you that have never ridden a 450, they're freaking rocket ships. And these guys are 160 pounds. It barely feels them on it. For 20 minutes, it's just like, I was telling you earlier in the podcast, 2 laps into that heat race, I was exhausted. And I am in good shape for an athlete, for a professional athlete. I'm in good shape. And 2 laps into a heat race, what is that? 2 minutes?
2.5 minutes, yeah.
I can barely even keep going. And these guys are riding that pace for 21 minutes, whatever it is.
And then let's add in the racecraft. Let's add in the personal issues. Let's add in the team pressures. Let's add in the championship points. Let's add in all of those factors. Like if you look at let's say just those 4 dudes, the fucking storylines that are available for us to pick apart. Cooper Webb and Ken Roczen, they've got personal shit that runs deep as fuck. They've both ended each other's seasons before. Cooper Webb has made a habit of ruining Ken Roczen's main events. You add in all of these personal storylines. You add in like the Tomac and Barsha thing. There's probably not a dude out there that Eli Tomac dislikes more than Barsha in terms of, a competitor. Like he seems at times scared to even ride with Barsha. you know?
Yeah,
so it's
scared
like,
to pass him sometimes.
for sure he is, and for good reason.
Yeah, although he did a good job of passing him this weekend. Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, I think Bosch has just done a good job this season, just in general. I don't think he's made many kind of questionable passes at all this year. But yeah, I mean, it's like all of what you just said in terms of the physical demands that are on these guys. And now let's add in all the other shit that definitely comes into play. And it's like, how do you do it? How can you motherfuckers do what you do and do it every single weekend? It is absolutely mind-boggling when you get into the meta of it.
Man, it is. It is, and it's a whole different level. It is a whole... because I'm speaking from the perspective of a 28th place 450 Supercross rider. That's no slouch necessarily, and I'm saying that I can't even comprehend that. Never mind the layman viewer that maybe can ride a dirt bike decent, you know, like it's a different planet. The mindset and the mental game required and the fractions. So like a good example even is when Webb passed Roxon, and then Roxon charged around the turn after the finish and made the pass back.
Yeah.
The mindset there versus 2 corners later, the turn before the whoops, there was a mindset shift right there, and that's why Webb made the pass. Webb didn't make the pass because he was faster in that section. Webb made that pass in that specific moment because he decided he wanted it 1% more than Roxon did.
100%.
And that was such an obvious sign of it, because in the turn, so the turn before the rhythm, Cooper drove it in, and by the way, the racing was really clean. Like they could have cleaned each other out multiple times. Cooper drove it in. Roxon stuck with it. They went down the rhythm side by side. If you're on the inside of the rhythm section and you have a guy parallel to you and pretty much, you know, completely side by side, you own the turn. You can do whatever you want. You can decide to stop short. You can decide to run them high. You just play off of what they're doing. If they think they're going to cut down,
like what Sexton did to Coop, like what Sexton did in the heat.
Yeah, you have total control. If they go high, you run them high. If they want to cut down, you slam the brakes so they can't cut down. Roxon just drove up high, which was a really odd move. Roxon should have stayed tight and forced Webb to have to ride high, and then if he needed to, he could have made the decision to ride high. So that right there told me that he was kind of like a little bit okay with Webb going by. Then that pass through the whoops was the fastest that Webb hit the whoops that entire race. And it was because Webb knew and wanted, like he was going to make that pass right then and there. Roxon was faster than Webb in the whoops all day long, and probably always will be faster than Webb in the whoops. But Webb hit him just that one time that fast because he decided in here that he was going to make that pass. And Roxon was just kind of like, okay. And that's the difference. That's why, and I hate to say this because I'm a fan of all these guys because I just respect their ability.
Yeah.
I want to see Roxon win the championship just because this Webb's going to win the championship. Unless something catastrophic happens, Webb has got it a little bit more up here. Not to say Roxon is a head case, because a lot of people call him a head case. I don't know if I would go that far by any means, but I think that Webb is that one step above. And it's obvious, right? He doesn't get shook in any situation where you can see Roxon, you can see Roxon a little hesitant in certain situations. That's why those last lap passes happen. Those last lap passes happen because Roxon starts thinking, just get me to this darn finish line. Don't mess up, don't mess up, don't mess up. And he starts messing up. I don't know if the average person viewing can watch those little mistakes, but that's why Webb closes in on those last laps. because Webb's like, I'm going to get this guy no matter what. And he's charging that last lap with a completely different mindset. And that's the only difference. It's riding aggressive and attacking for all you got versus playing it safe and trying not to mess up. Trying not to mess up will always make you mess up.
Yeah. No, 100%. Man, I like both of those dudes. I'm definitely a lot closer with Kenny. I said it on here before, but there's a point in where I was living in America where Kenny was one of my best mates. Like, we were hanging out constantly. I would love nothing more than to see him win this championship. I've had a lot of fun times with Coop as well. But, man, I really think that, I said it on the Supercross Companion, Arlington 1 was a must-win race for Ken. If he didn't win that race, then he wasn't winning the title. And Arlington 2, Arlington 3, I just don't know. I feel like I've got it. Regardless of like any personal feelings, I feel like I have to stick the shitty Australian doesn't go to the races analyst in me said that Arlington 1 was the race that Kenny had to win.
Yeah, and I wouldn't even say he had to win it, but he had to do something assertive and dominant. You know, like if he had led it and then just like had a freak crash or something and didn't win, it still would have been a win in the mental game category. But to just be out, I'm trying to think of a good appropriate adjective here, but to kind of just be outclassed 3 races in a row like that, it's got to be, you can see it being a little bit defeating. Right? Where I feel like when Roxon swept Indy, I don't think it was as defeating as this sweep is. This seems, this just seems like a bigger shift to me.
It seems like the nail in the coffin.
Yeah. But there's a lot of racing left, so who freaking knows? I don't know what I'm talking about. I mean, anything could happen. That's why we love the sport, right?
That is true.
We can go out in Atlanta and somebody could crash and the Webb could tip over in the first turn and get a 7th. And the next thing you know, things shift all over again. We're having a different conversation after Atlanta 1.
Yeah, the thing is, though, that like Webb didn't have it all his own way for most of the season. It's just been like this. Like, I mean, I heard a bunch of shit that I won't say on here, but there's like a lot of fucked up shit that Coop was kind of dealing with at the start of the season, like real big shit. Whereas if he didn't come good to the point where he is now, then like that's a huge talking point. But lo and behold, he figures it out and it comes good, and now he's leading the championship again, you know. But it's like he just seems like no matter what happens, man, no matter what's going on behind the scenes, no matter what is going on with the bike, once he gets any kind of confidence, it's over, dude. Like, it's fucking over. And that's a crazy athlete.
Confidence is such a weird and delicate thing. I wonder how he was raised, like very specifically how he was raised and how he was treated by like his dad or whoever he was surrounded with at a really young age. Because I think to a certain extent you're born with some of that, but I think most of it is how, like what you're surrounded by and your upbringing, right?
Yeah.
Like when we have a kid and they decide to ride, I hope they don't, but if they do, I'm going to have them in with a mental coach and like a hypnotist right off the bat. And I want to make it so that when you're off the bike, when your helmet isn't on, you are the most giving, selfless person. You would do anything for anybody. And as soon as your helmet goes on, you would kill to win. You would do anything to win.
Yeah.
If you train that mindset from when you're young enough, a literal switch can go off in your brain to when you put your helmet on, something can trigger and you could believe that you're the baddest dude to ever touch a dirt bike. If you're being told that, it's like Mike Tyson. If you're being told that from the time you're 3 years old, that's all you're going to know. And I think these guys had to have been, to a certain extent, maybe not that specifically, but to a certain extent, to believe that right from the get-go. I always I always say I set my bar too low. I was 5 years old. If you had asked me I have a kindergarten project when I was in school. It was, what do we want to be when we grow up? And I drew a picture. I still have it to this day. I drew a picture of a dirt bike, even though you could barely tell it was a dirt bike. And I wrote, I want to be a pro dirt bike rider. And that was always the goal, was to be a pro dirt bike rider.
But it was never, I want to be world champion.
Do you know what Eli Tomac and Cooper Webb and Justin Barsha and Ken Roxon, what their goal was? Their goal wasn't to be a pro dirt bike rider. It was to be the best dirt bike rider.
Yeah.
And they had that goal from 5 years old, just like I did. When I turned 16 years old and I turned pro, my dad took a step back. The pressure disappeared from my dad, where it went from win-win-win to, oh, good job, AJ, you made it. And it was instant complacency as soon as I was 16 years old. Because that mind, and when you're 16, 17, 18, 19, you can't fake it till you make it as easy as you could when you were 5 years old. You tell a 5-year-old something over and over and over, they're gonna believe it.
Yeah.
Like at that point, you couldn't trick me at that point to say that I was gonna be the best dirt bike rider ever, because I just simply didn't believe it.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
It's so, yeah, no, 100%. I think too with, if you go back through history as well, especially we only have to look at motocross and supercross. So you look at Villopoto, 4-time supercross champion, was the bridesmaid to Mike Alessi forever, and just turned into a gritty fucking dog because he wasn't the star and he was getting whooped by this dude constantly and believed the hype, and it was like almost no one give a fuck about Ryan Villopoto. And then here comes this dude completely kind of, from obscurity, and then just figures it out when it counts. And then he's just got this like killer instinct, and it's like he wasn't as talented, he wasn't as good as Alessi, and it's like inside he would have, like, the mental shit he would have told himself to beat Alessi. He's actually doing the podcast soon, so I'm pretty excited to talk about him with it. But it's like, imagine RV. Oh, but cool. Imagine the shit, like, just to line up every year at Loretta's. Imagine the shit that RV would have had to tell himself, like the internal conversations, like I can beat this guy, I got to beat this guy, like the want and desire that would have created in RV, to where then like you get to the pros and it's like you are so full of this like burning desire to beat this guy. And now you can apply that same thing to Coop and AC. Coop got smoked by AC forever. And then, you get into the pros and like, here's this guy that just has this like killer instinct. And if you're a guy, right, you think about the position that you're in. So if you're Alessi and you've won everything as an amateur, think about the mindset that you've got going into pros. You're now a small fish in a big pond, and like all you've ever done is win. Winning's the only thing that's an option. Anything less is going to feel like a massive letdown. And then but then if you were talking about the Alessi example, if you're RV, it's not like you were the dude. You weren't always winning, but the fact that you kept showing up and you kept trying, there's something internal there that is going on. And then you get to the pros and it's like, you're not expected to win. You don't have to win, but you've just spent this lifetime cultivating this like mental fortitude to get yourself to the line and have a crack, even when you're not the guy. And it's like, there's no pressure on you at that point. And I think that that's sort of the same for Coop, like he come into the pros and he'd spent his whole life getting beat by AC. And it's like, there's obviously this desire that gets created where it's like, if you're still going to the start line, you still want to win. Like you got there without being the dude. Like you got there without winning everything. So there's something, there must be something to that, to that then leads itself into the pros. And like, and then if you're Coop, you can go like, fuck, Loretta's doesn't even matter, man. Like, I'm just gonna, I can win as a pro. I can win as a pro. Like, you can kind of like palm off your amateur careers, like it doesn't really matter. Whereas like guys like AC and Alessi, it's like, it's that was their world. Like, they were the best. I don't know if that makes sense.
I think all of those guys' vision were the same though, in that they wanted to be the best no matter what. And being a guy like Coop, being a guy like RV, being a guy like Dungey, that's even more difficult. Like you just said, to still keep the vision. Well, the results aren't going the way you want them to, and you're getting beat over and over again by either the same guy, or you're just like in Dungey's situation, just being a top 3, top 5 guy and not winning, but still believing that you want to be one of the greatest to ever do it. I think if anything, that just probably supports my point of these guys have something from that young age to where they believe it no matter what.
Yeah.
I don't know. But it's so weird. It's so weird because then look at a guy like AP. Look at Plessinger. He's had a couple tough years, and going from a dude in 250s winning. Did he win outdoors and Supercross in 1 year?
Wait, Ronan. Did AP win a Supercross title and then the motocross title in the same year, or did he just win 2 motocross back to back? Yeah, he did. He did win. Fuck yeah. Wait, Ronan. You're a G, bro. Yeah, so he did. He won Supercross and motocross in the same year.
Imagine going from that guy to then spending a couple years in 450, like really struggling to get the results. And then as soon as he has, what came first? The good heat race. Did he get a heat race win and then the main event finish?
Yeah, so he won the heat. I'm pretty sure he won the heat race at Daytona and then got second. And then he went and won the heat race again the next weekend.
And now all of a sudden, boom, he's right into a consistent, pretty much, I think, consistent top 5 guy. And I hired him for a school, so he'll be doing a class with me in a couple weeks. But I went up and said, I was like, dude, I love seeing, like, you're back. I'm like, all it took was one race. Isn't that funny how that works? All it took was one race, and then all of a sudden, boom, I believe again.
Yeah. Yeah, and dude, imagine, so like what you just said about AP. Think about Coop's fucking first 2 years on a 450. What?
Yeah. Yeah, and a lot of that too, I think, was technique stuff, or not a lot of, good bit of it, right? His technique changed quite a bit, but that takes so much mental fortitude to leave. There's a lot of races, even if it's just one bad season. That's 17 Supercross rounds and 12 outdoor rounds. 12 outdoors. Yeah. That is a lot of racing. That is a lot of times to fly into a race, leave disappointed, try wicked hard all over again all week long, fly to a race, be disappointed again for a year. And for Coop, that was 2 years in a row. For AP, that's 2 years in a row. And then all of a sudden to have that mindset shift. It's cool to see. I love seeing that happen to guys too, because I know how hard everybody works, and it just makes me happy. Like seeing Plessinger all of a sudden start to do well again. I'm just like, I'm so pumped for him. Yeah, these guys work their butts off.
Totally agree. What do you see in Coop's technique? Because I personally do think you're one of the best coaches. I work a lot with Townley. Like, Townley's one of my really good friends. He's a fucking brilliant coach as well. Dude, man, you wait till you see his son ride. His kid is insane. And so I think we're going to see, Levi Townley is going to be him and Danger Boy. I think he's
is he Danger
14.
Boy's age? Is he?
I think he's a little bit younger. But I think that we're gonna see a crop of pretty epic talent that are around that age, you know. But so to what you say and Townley say are quite similar. Like, I think you guys have a lot of good points. And I think a lot of the really good coaches that are around at the moment, I think Rhino as well. Like, Rhino's got some really cool and interesting takes on things, and a lot of it's quite similar positioning. But I think that the delivery and the way that you speak to each rider, I think that's kind of what makes a really great coach. Like, not just what you're teaching.
Thank you. That's the magic. That's the hard part.
Yeah, exactly. Because you've got to translate that information. But yeah, so like, what do you see in Coop?
So, and Townley's a legend, by the way. I raced that guy at Manjimup.
Have you done Manjimup?
Yeah, twice.
Dude,
I think I got third. Yeah, Townley beat me, and then
what year would that be? 2012,
2014.
Okay.
2014. Yeah, I remember I was fast, but that track beat me up. Manji gets rough.
I'm going to do it this year.
I want to go back. So Willie, the promoter, I talk to him on the phone here, like probably a few times a year. I'll definitely come back, and then I'll just schedule a bunch of schools to kind of travel around.
Yeah, sick.
So Webb, if you go back and watch footage of Webb on a 250 and watch him in those first couple 450 years, all you have to do is look at his feet. That's it. Webb's footwork still isn't as good as some of the guys that really kill it with the footwork, but it's improved quite a bit. Webb used to ride very flat-footed, and then with his toes pointed out. So flat-footed is an issue because you just don't have that, and especially Webb being a short guy, you lose that suspension travel in your ankle. That's a lot of travel. Like when you're riding on the balls of your feet and allowing your heels to drop, like when you watch somebody with really good footwork go through a set of whoops, it looks like they're almost breaking their ankle, right? Because there's so much flexion there. That's suspension travel. That's probably 2, 3, 4 inches of suspension travel.
Yeah.
So Webb was riding shifted forward a little bit. Like if you had seen the bottom of his boots in those years, they were probably worn right in his arches. So being on your arches, you eliminate all of that suspension travel. But then also riding with your foot forward like that, the only way to not have your foot hitting the brake in the shifter is to have your toes out. And that's bad for a couple of reasons, but one of the biggest ones is that it doesn't allow you to really work the bike with your lower body, because your knees, if your toes are pointed out, your kneecaps are pointed out, and you can't grip the bike with your lower body. So going from maybe a 250, Webb was dominant on a 250, you can manhandle that, right? But when you get to the 450, if you're Webb size and you're trying to muscle that thing around with your upper body, it's simply just not going to work. 90%, if not more, of that grip strength is coming from your lower body. And footwork is the number one most important thing. Like, watch Roxon. He is so intentional watch Sexton, watch Cianciarillo. These guys are super, super intentional with where their feet are on the pegs at all times. If you watch Roxon take a turn and dab his foot to the dirt, it will instantly reset and go right back to the foot peg. Where watching Webb in those years, the foot would catch, it would drag, he'd try to put it out again, it would drag the dirt again. So one mistake turns into 3, where now that's even taking it a step further. Now you're seeing guys like Roxon just deciding to leave their feet on altogether. And that's what I try to teach. And this is definitely will stir up some arguments, and people ask me this, they say, well, what situation should I leave my feet on? What situation should I take them off? I say, if I were to have a kid and they want to ride, I will teach them how to ride a dirt bike with both feet on at all times. And then naturally, like if they need to put their foot out to save themselves every once in a while, I get it. Like the only reason these guys are putting their foot out in Supercross in these corners is because they just put it down sometimes to save themselves from crashing. That's really all it is, if you think about it. That foot, there people say it like shifts weight here or there. Not really. I've experimented so much. I've hit all different types of corners, feet on, feet off. but in all different positions on the seat just to see what happens. All it is an extra movement. All it is having one less limb connected to the bike, so you have less of your legs holding on to the thing, and it's easier to make mistakes. I don't know. That's how I feel about it. And you saw Webb that shift as soon as he got on the KTM. I don't know who told him or who was working with him, but those feet started to come in.
Maybe he started.
And technique-wise, that makes all the difference.
Maybe he started watching YouTube.
Maybe you're welcome, Coop.
I think you should just claim it. Nah, I mean, so I did a trip to Townley's place. He does like his BT tours like all through New Zealand. And then
I want to do that.
Oh, dude, it's fucking ridiculous.
I want to go do it and bring my camera guy and do a vlog. That'd be sweet.
Oh, it'd be insane, dude. But yeah, like that was the first thing that Townley said to me, just like fully changed like the attack position for me. And I could not believe the extra travel that you'd get suspension wise out of your ankles. Like it felt weird, and then like I could put weight in different areas, and I was having like I'd go right hand turn, my right heel would drop a little bit more because there's a bit more weight in it. Like it just completely changed riding for me. And now when I ride, my first thing every time I'll reset my body positioning, I'm just like on my toes, gripping with the knees, and it's something that I've tried to make into a habit, but it's a fucking game changer. And if you look like another thing, I don't know, it's probably cool to ask you about, but one of the things, like I've studied a bunch of footage of Sexton riding. Like I get on YouTube, I slow it right down, and I watch his technique. I've also noticed his knee line is never over the front arch of his ankle. Like, so his kneecap would always be behind like that front arch.
Mm-hmm. That when I put my students on the stand, I tell them balls of your feet, toes pointed in. The next thing I always say, go through the checklist in your head from your feet to your head, right? So you got balls of your feet, toes pointed in. Very next thing is knees level with or behind the foot pegs. There's exceptions to it. Like if you're hitting a really short and steep obstacle where you kind of let your knees blow forward for a second in certain situations, that's the exception.
Okay? So the knees, so that's the one thing I did notice. The knees would come forward when he was like scrubbing and stuff. You're kind of like pushing the knees like towards the radiators kind of. But yeah, like pretty much as soon as Sexton would stand up, he would shift his knees all the way back as far as he could, get the hips back, and then like bend at his spine.
Yep. Yeah. So it's like a hip hinge, and your knees stay back, and then you hinge from the hips to get your chest forward. That's the hard part. So, and that's what happens. I say, okay, get your knees back. And as soon as I do that, my students will go like this, whoop, and they'll extend their arms back because, that's kind of what feels natural to them. So the tricky part is keeping the knees back no matter what. And what's helpful is if you have a seat with ribs on it, you can usually use one of the ribs as a gauge. So like every once in a while, if you're just getting used to it, look down and be like, okay, my knees shouldn't go in front of the second rib on my seat. Or you just look at your foot pegs. If you look down, you can't see your tippy toes and you can't see your foot pegs, your knees are too far forward. So drive the knees back, but then your head has to stay forward. So I always tell my students, if you're doing it right, you should feel a heck of a stretch in your hamstring. Yeah. If you're doing it wrong, you're going to feel the weight in your quads and in your shins because your knees are in front of your toes. Sexton is probably the most picture perfect attack position if you could ever draw it up. Roxon is probably the best footwork in the corners, although Sexton's pretty darn close. But Sexton and Roxon are two guys to really like. If you're going to emulate style, watch those guys. Yeah.
One thing I noticed, going kind of jumping around, but going back to this weekend, one of the things that I noticed, there was one lap through the whoops where, and I don't know whether it was tired or whether it was like mentally Coop broke him. But man, Roxon completely lost his attack position in the whoops, and his arms were going like that. Like, it wasn't necessarily like the bike stayed straight and he was still going through the whoops, but he lost that attack position completely. And yeah, I don't know what the factor was, but man, it's definitely like, since I've really been like paying attention to that technique and that specific attack position, man, you could see the point in the main event where Kenny lost that.
Yeah, and in the whoops, and that's the beauty of the attack position, is you utilize it everywhere. Anytime your butt's off the seat, standing up, it is the same position. It's the same position to jump 5 feet or 105 feet. It's the same position to go through a set of sand rollers or a set of supercross whoops. It's all the same. So usually 2 mistakes in the whoops. So one, either you would get your head too far back and try to lean too far off the back, which then just creates an uneven motorcycle, and then you end up doing the old teeter-totter. Or if you hesitate a little bit too much on the entry, well, this can happen a couple different ways. Either that, or if you just straight up just get too much wheel spin, it's easy to allow your knees to cave forward and your whole lower half to kind of go too far forward, which then same thing. It'll kind of create that teeter-totter effect. And in whoops, it doesn't take much. Like you mess up that position for just one of the 12 whoops, and you've basically screwed yourself the whole rest of them. I mean, because it's so precise. You have to keep a level plane, so then you can hit the very top inch or two of every single whoop with the front and the rear tire. As soon as your body position's out of shape, left, right, forward, back, you're not hitting that exact point on the whoop. Yeah. And so there's no coincidence why the guys with the best attack position are the guys that go the best through the whoops, right?
Jet Lawrence.
Yeah. Oh man. And watching Hunter Lawrence in the whoops, him and Jet look pretty identical, and they can trust their entry speed because their attack position is so good. Yeah. That they can enter as fast as they want. The guys that get a little squirrely attack position wise and get scared and come out of position, or just don't have it dialed as good as Jet and Hunter do, would get themselves killed 50% of the time coming into the whoops. But every time I watch Jet and Hunter, same thing with Christian Craig, enter a set of whoops at that speed, I don't cringe because I'm like, oh, they'll be fine. Because they know to stay in that position no matter what. Yeah. It's cool to watch.
Yeah, that was one thing, like, even that's one thing BT says. He's like, man, I could teach you how to skim a set of whoops. He's like, it's fucking easy if you do it right.
Mm-hmm. It just takes a lot of courage to stay in that position. Can I just say, too, by the way, I had Jet. I hired him for 2 days.
That was my next question.
That dude is so fun to be around. Like, those were 2 of the best classes I've ever had.
He's the man, dude.
It was awesome. He geared up and rode with the kids all day long. Like, I posted a clip on Instagram. There was one little boy who was about to cry because he was getting so down on himself, and Jet gave him a pep talk and then had him sit on the back of Jet's bike. Like, he has a heart of gold, and he's so grounded for being. He's a superstar at 17. We were just talking about how we thought. I thought I was an idiot at 24. What was I doing I was a pro at 17, but I was an idiot. And he just seems like he's got it pretty figured. You could tell he's a kid. When you talk to him, he's a kid. Yeah. But to just be level-headed and for how successful he is, and he came up to me at the end of the very first day, and he goes, hey, can we do more of these? And I'm like, dude, of course. Like, literally, anytime you want, let me know, and we'll do more of these. He's like, I really enjoyed that. I loved, like, seeing the reactions of them getting excited and this and that. He's like, that's what I love. I'm like, that is so cool to hear, because I don't think I could say the same about I think a lot of the guys take the fame and that stuff for granted. And I think it's a lot from their old man. Like, he lets them know that they're not crap, right? Like, as soon as they think they're the shit, he's like, And yeah, man, you're that was cool to see.
You're so right, man. Like, the reason both of those boys are the way they are is because of Emma and Darren. Like, they come from a real humble family, and Darren's about as like Aussie fucking battler as it gets. And there's I feel like there's a kind of a big thing in Australian culture with like the whole tall poppy syndrome, and it's something that it's something I think about a lot, you know, like I really try and make sure I'm constantly reminded that I'm just a normal fucking dude that has a messy ass room and needs to do my washing when I get home. You know what I mean? And a lot of times, like, I think that's a real Australian thing. Like, a lot of times if you're an Aussie and you're around people and you step out of your lane of just being like a normal dude, like, our culture is pretty ruthless towards those people that decide to step out and start thinking that they're better than what they are. And I mean, Australia's a young country, and it come from real humble beginnings. You know, like, everyone kind of knows the convict story, but it's like Australia wasn't shit. And, you know, we've kind of just been this like little underdog country that's like kind of working its way up there. And I don't know, there's something that's real deep there that like runs real deep. And I think that it was, especially too, like, I kind of have learned this on both fronts because I went to America real young, and then I was just like a fucking film dude, man. But like, I was around all the races, and I was going to all the parties, and I was banging heaps of chicks, and, you know, like, I got the taste of like, oh fuck, this is pretty sick. Right. Like, I can kind of, I don't have to be like the humble Aussie dude. Like, I can be who I want to be, and I can say this and I can do that. I'm getting these girls and partying. People want to hang out. And then I had a bit of a big switch, man, where I was just like, oh, this ain't the move to do this. Like, it's pretty accessible over in America, like being an Aussie. And yeah, I saw that. I was like, man, this is probably a weird thing to want. Like, if I want this and if I'm like really enjoying all this shit, like, this is actually kind of weird. And I was lucky I came home a bunch of times to where people would like, they'd cut you back down to size pretty quick. And then I think I've seen a lot of Aussies that go over there and they just stay over there, and then they only have like, they just stay around American mates, and it's like no one's really trying to cut you down. Like, people almost enjoy the fact that you're being kind of extra, but it gets to a point where it's like not a good thing anymore. So I think with Jet and Hunter, they're not gonna go through that. Like, they've got too many good people around them in terms of like so Darren and Emma. Like, they're not on their own. They're not getting to carry on the way that, you know, a lot of young dudes do when they go over there. And I think that is probably going to really serve them well in the long term. Because you can't. It's just when you start drinking the Kool-Aid, you know.
And ultimately too, you know, that's being that high caliber and thinking you're the shit. That's not what's cool. What's cool is being that dude and being humble about it. That's the next level of coolness. That's what's really cool, right?
Yeah.
What about Reed? Because I feel like Reed went through a phase of kind of being...
He went through that.
Kind of a little bit of a dick.
Yeah.
And Reed's been really like, cool the last few years, though. Like, really cool. But I definitely, like... I didn't say 2 words to the guy my whole pro career because it just seemed like he wasn't nice.
Yeah, I think that...
Maybe I could have been reading that wrong.
No, I mean, dude, I didn't talk to Chad until I did the podcast with him. Like, we weren't cool. Like, I had like a super weird attitude towards him. Part of that was me as well. Like, we spoke about it on the podcast that a part of that was like, I wanted to be cool with him just because I was like, hey, I'm Aussie, you're here killing it, I'm doing my best. Like, surely we'll fucking get along. And then there was just like nothing. I think that there's like a few things with Chad that probably went on like it was a different time. There's a lot more money. There's a lot of people trying to get at him constantly. Social media wasn't really a thing, so you didn't really have like a voice in your own way the way that riders do now. And the media was still more of the media. Like, nowadays, I mean, it's like for the better. if you get on and talk shit, or like the media talks shit about you, then like you just get on your Instagram. All these riders have fucking more followers than like the media anyway. So you can get out and you can be yourself and you can say what you want to say. I think in the era of like, in Chad's defense, you know, that era, you didn't have that opportunity. Like you got the interview with the Racer X or the TV, and then they're like propositioning you to say certain things anyway. So it's not like you're really getting to say what you want to say because you're only getting asked questions from a certain angle. So I think like there probably was a bit of that with Chad. I think Chad had a bit of a, that whole tall poppy thing that I spoke about. I think Chad resented that a little bit from Australia. And then, you know, dude, it was huge. Like anyone over here would be like, fucking Chad lost his accent, blah, blah, blah. And, you know, that was like, I think that was like the big thing with the Aussie public. They were just like, fuck you, dude. Like you don't even talk like us anymore. So I think that was probably like, yeah.
Has
so I don't
he
know.
won
I feel
back like,
yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, because like, I mean, he
yeah, I
started
was
coming to
wondering
the races a lot more here. Started, you know, and he got his own social media and you could see who he actually is, and he got to say, you know, the things that he wanted to say. And I think that probably was an element too of like when your career winds down, you start to realize
your
like,
ego starts to fade away a little bit, especially with the kids.
Yeah. And it's like you kind of start to feel like, oh, fuck, if I'm not a good dude, I kind of don't have anything. Like I don't have championships. I don't have, and it's not to say Chad wasn't a good dude, but it's just like he didn't let people in to know that he was a good dude, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Cause I texted him, I don't know, a couple months ago, expecting to never get a response. I asked him to do a school, and he responded right away and said, yeah. So just,
yeah,
we'll have to make that happen. But I was surprised. I was like, he'll never respond. Sure enough, he did.
Honestly,
he said, hey, AJ, and like was super nice. So I was like, oh, that's cool. Yeah,
honestly, he's a fucking awesome dude. Like he's such an. I'm lucky that I've got to hang out with him as much as I have. You know, post doing that podcast, and yeah, I'm a huge. I'm not like a fan, but like I'm a huge advocate of Chad being a really good dude. Because I think he's got a bad rap over time, and I was one of those dudes that thought that shit about him.
Yeah, he's a legend. Every time I hear that AC/DC song, for the rest of my life, I will think of Chad Reed.
Will be Chad's opening ceremonies.
Oh yeah, man, that like, yeah, legendary. But hey, dude, I kind of sort of have to get rolling. I'm getting pressure from the wife. I got to spend time with the dog because we're leaving. I haven't been around. I'm leaving for a week. The poor guy. Can we do more of these things? Get me on 100%. Race day.
Yeah.
And then I want to shoot the shit more. We just scratched the surface.
Oh, dude, yeah, we really did. Well, you got the setup there pretty dialed now. So yeah, we can.
Let's hope it works.
Again. Have you got anything to shout out over that's coming up? Obviously your schools, your YouTube channel, and yeah, we definitely should do this again because there's so much more stuff to talk about.
When are you releasing this? That would determine what I plug.
Probably tomorrow.
Okay, so I got to get you this footage ASAP tonight.
Yeah,
right?
Just once you're done, just dump the cards. I'll make a Google Drive, and then you just drop the footage, and it'll be sweet.
Yeah, so go to ajcatanzaro.com, sign up for the Plessinger class if you live in the U.S. If you want a class in Australia, let me know where. As soon as I can fly over due to COVID restrictions, I'll fly over and I'll just hit a bunch of different locations while I'm there. I could just hire like top tier Australian dudes to be guest instructors and do it that way. Cause I think I need to have, like certified coaches present anyhow, right? Isn't that how it works?
Cool. I got no idea. I'd be down to help you with whatever you need.
I did a class. Yeah, that would be very helpful, by the way. I did a class in Australia a couple of times, and I think I had to have somebody that was a certified trainer there to kind of like sign off on it to make it legit.
Yeah.
But yeah, subscribe to my YouTube, I guess, huh? That's all that really matters.
That's it.
But thanks for having me, dude. This was a blast. How long is this? We were chatting for a while, no?
2.5 hours.
Look at us go. Solid.
Goes quick.
Solid.
Oh man, we could have kept going too. There's a bunch more. Well, yeah, maybe now that you've got your setup dialed, I don't know when you're going to be in California, but you could always pop into the Cali studio as well. But yeah, this setup worked pretty good. So
yeah, well, let's hope. But yeah, Cali studio anytime. Race day, if you want to do a race day thing, let me know what I have to buy, and I'll go buy whatever.
No, dude, you can just do it like face.
Do it.
You could just do it off your iPhone.
Oh, you think? Just like an Instagram video like we did?
Yeah, 100%. Nah, okay. So you just, that same call that you're logged into now, will you just put in your same name, password, and it'll buzz you straight in the studio.
Oh, right from my phone I could do that?
Yeah, boy.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, we could get you on. Yeah, we could get you on whenever. Or yeah, I mean, or if you, anyway, we could figure it out. But I'd love to. Atlanta, we should just aim to do it at Atlanta.
Yeah, that'd be sick.
I'll
just strap my phone to my bike and you guys can ride around with me.
Dude, that would legit work. Like, I'm not even joking. If you put like a phone helmet cam mount on, that would legit work.
Oh my God.
I don't know how Dave Prater would feel about that.
Oh no, nothing flies with old Feld.
Yeah, I know. Nothing. That's like that's a whole topic in itself. Yep.
I could talk for 2.5 hours about that.
Fuck. All right. Well, let's do AJ part 2 pretty soon, because I feel like we've got a lot more shit to talk about. Yes, sir. Well, thank you for having me, dude. I appreciate it. That was awesome. No. You're a good man. I really appreciate you. You're a good man. I appreciate you, dude. Well, sweet. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Subscribe to AJ's YouTube channel, AJ Catanzaro, on Instagram as well. And buy some Black Rifle coffee to support the great man. And yeah, keep doing it, man. Honestly, like I cannot overstate how good a job you do. I'm excited for you to enter like the next phase of this whole YouTube thing with some help. Your schools have added a lot of value to a lot of people, and the YouTube channel adds a lot of value as well. So I really appreciate you and the work that you guys do. It's fucking good for motocross and supercross. Thank you, dude. Thank you. Appreciate that. If you enjoyed this content, please like and subscribe. And to listen to the full 3-hour podcast, search Gypsy Tales in your favorite podcast platform or click the link in the description below. Gypsy Gang.